All the experts from the corrupt path, the ancient races, and the ancient family alliance exploded one by one. Chu Yao jumped in shock. This was too sudden. This con was arranged from the start. Long Chen watched as those experts struggled to resist. Through this reminder, Chu Yao thought of how every one of these people had coughed up a mouthful of blood before this. She instantly realized something. All of those experts summoned their manifestations and went all out resisting. But this power wasn't an outer force. It was coming from within them. They were unable to control their own bodies. It was like the self-detonation process had been triggered and could not be stopped. Blood poured towards the black saber. As more essence blood gathered on it, a vague figure gradually grew more solid. No! Screams of despair rang out. Unable to resist this bizarre power, these experts exploded. In the end, the only ones left were Sha Guangyan, Peng Wanxing, and 7 rank 9 celestials. They had summoned their manifestations and were just barely able to prevent themselves from exploding. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing were a bit better off. Their primal chaos manifestations made it so there wasn't much change in them. But the rank 9 celestials were all pale as paper and had the majority of their spirit blood extracted. They had felt like their bodies were no longer theirs. Their spirit blood had been extracted in the most barbaric, most domineering method. Even their heavenly Tao energy hadn't helped them. The fortunate thing was that they were alive. The unfortunate thing was that having lost the majority of their spirit blood, they would need to spend a long time recuperating. In the blink of an eye, over 1,000 experts were slain. Even Life Star experts hadn't been able to resist. It had to be known that those who were able to reach this place were all true experts. But they didn't have the slightest ability to resist in front of the black saber. The blood quickly condensed into a 300-meter blood giant. It grasped the black saber. The black saber also grew to become 300 meters long. It slashed down, shaking the sky. Black light devoured the world. A black crescent moon slashed towards the drop of sovereign blood. Boom. The black crescent moon was like a devil's blade. The sovereign blood replied, and its rainbow light suddenly blazed. A supreme will descended. It was like the will of a god, something no one could resist. Peng Wanxing, Sha Guangyan, and the rank 9 celestials all knelt on the ground in front of this terrifying pressure. Long Chen also felt the pressure, but it didn't affect him at all. On the other hand, Chu Yao turned pale and tottered, requiring him to support her. In that instant, Chu Yao felt like a god was looking at her. She felt that not kneeling would be a blaspheme to that god. But with Long Chen's support, most of the sovereign pressure suddenly vanished. In the end, she didn't kneel. The rainbow light lit up the sky. The black crescent moon shattered. The blood giant exploded, and the black blade dimmed. It once more stabbed into the stone platform in exactly the same position as before. Chu Yao, be careful. I'm going in. Just at this moment, Long Chen shot over. When the black saber stabbed into the ground, just as everyone had yet to recover from their shock, he arrived in front of it. Bastard, don't even think about it. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing roared at the same time, charging over. But Long Chen had taken the initiative. He grabbed the black saber. This was the best opportunity to take it. This was also his only chance. For this chance, he had already moved the world tree sprouts in the primal chaos space into one of the life storage rocks. He was preparing to drop the black saber into the primal chaos space and have the primal chaos bead suppress it. In truth, he could tell that this black saber was still being a scammer. It was acting heavily injured, but it was just for everyone to see. It wanted someone to bring it away. The sovereign blood in the sky only targeted it. It didn't target anyone else. When the time came, no matter who managed to bring it away, it would cooperate. Of course, after striking an agreement with it, the price for bringing it away would probably be that person's life. Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan were unable to see this. They were still rushing over without realizing that if they did succeed in taking the saber, they would most likely be forfeiting their lives. If Long Chen didn't have the primal chaos bead, he wouldn't hesitate to toss the saber to them. But since he did, he had to try it. His hand grabbed hold of the hilt. He was just about to pull it out and toss it in the primal chaos space. But the instant his hand touched the hilt, the saber vanished. Not only did the saber vanish, all the surroundings vanished. Long Chen appeared in a strange space. This space was only a few square meters. The space around it was twisting. It was like he was currently in a stable space flowing through the river of time. Long Chen was shocked, thinking he had fallen into a trap. Don't worry. Right now, time is still. Just at this moment, a voice rang out behind him. He turned back to see a white-robed man standing there, looking down at a chessboard on the ground. The man didn't look at him. He seemed to be lost in thought. When he saw this man, Long Chen's heart began to pound madly. He instantly felt like he knew who this person was. Come and have a look at this chessboard. The man beckoned Long Chen over without looking at him. Long Chen's heartbeat pounded loudly in his ears. Despite his big guts, he couldn't stay calm in front of a legendary existence. He forcibly suppressed his emotions and walked over to the man. He didn't feel any pressure. He didn't feel any aura at all. It was like this man didn't even exist. It was like everything in front of him was nothing more than a fabrication. How would you play out this game? Asked the white-robed man. Long Chen carefully examined the chessboard. There was a chaotic arrangement of white and black pieces. Although he didn't know how to play this kind of chess, he could see that the black pieces had almost taken over the board. The white pieces were fighting with their backs in a small corner. It should be your turn. Whatever you decide, you have to choose a path, said the man. Long Chen was startled. This sentence sounded like it had a double meaning. He wanted him to make a choice? He knew that this white-robed man was most likely the sovereign Yunshang mentioned by the black saber. But what did choose a path mean? He looked at the chessboard, not saying a word. Hesitating like this shouldn't be your character, sighed the man. Long Chen nodded. Clenching his teeth, he reached out. The chessboard flipped through the air, the pieces tumbling to the ground. The white and black pieces transformed into runes that vanished. I don't know how to play this kind of chess, and I don't like wasting time playing by other people's rules. If I have to play, then I'm going to play by my rules. Long Chen was a bit apprehensive inside, but he thickened his skin. The white-robed man seemed to be stunned. Only at this moment did he raise his head. Long Chen finally saw his face. He looked very young and wasn't particularly handsome. He simply looked average except for his bright eyes. It felt like his eyes contained the river of time. Although he looked young, he also looked ancient. Although he was looking right at him, his memory of him felt like it was constantly being turned vague and indistinct. You wear black robes? The white-robed man was a bit surprised. The flow of the river of time in his eyes suddenly began to flow differently. Looking at his eyes made Long Chen's head hurt. Haha, I understand. Truly worthy of the game breaker. The white-robed man suddenly laughed heartily. Junior Long Chen greets Sovereign Yunshang. Long Chen paid his respects, while also testing his guess. Good, very good. The white-robed man didn't admit to it, but he didn't deny it. He just looked at Long Chen. Now it was awkward. Long Chen didn't know what to say to that. However, his face wasn't so thick for nothing. Yes, I also feel like I'm very good. Long Chen nodded. The white-robed man smiled. How is the situation of the Martial Heaven continent now? Unfortunately, I'm not aware of it. My elders refuse to tell me, and I don't particularly care. In any case, no matter what the situation is, all I need to do is look after myself and my people, said Long Chen honestly. When it came to the Martial Heaven continent as a whole, he might as well be blind. There were many things that he didn't know. Whether it was the old man of the heaven-splitting battle sect or Li Tianxian of the Shantian Dao sect, or even the Shantian Tower, they all didn't want him to come into contact with too many secrets. He knew that they were doing this for his benefit, so he didn't press them on these questions. Even if he knew those things, what could he possibly do about it? No matter what kind of dangers there were, they would come sooner or later. Dodging was not a way to resolve a problem. In the end, he would have to rely on his power, so all he needed to do was increase his strength. The man nodded at Long Chen. With your current cultivation base, they are afraid of having you bear karma. I can't nitpick them on that. However, you are the game breaker. These burdens will fall to you to carry sooner or later. You won't be able to run. However, not telling you these things is fine. It'll avoid the implications of karma. They won't be eliminated in accordance to the rules. Senior, what is the game breaker? Long Chen finally asked this question which he had been puzzling over ever since he had first heard this word. He greatly longed for this white-robed man to answer him. What is the game breaker? Isn't it this? The white-robed man smiled and pointed at the chessboard on the ground. At this moment, Long Chen was astonished, realizing that after being flipped, the chessboard had revealed an image. The image was covered in interweaving lines, but he could tell what it was. The ring of blue was the martial heaven sea ring, and the inside of the ring was the central plains. This chessboard actually depicted the martial heaven continent. The man waved his hand, and the chessboard transformed into dots of light that scattered. I've been studying this chessboard for a long time. I've examined countless possibilities to break out of it, yet not a single path worked. But you broke the board with a wave of your hand. I'm ashamed. Senior, this little one was just messing around. I really just don't know how to play chess, said Long Chen with embarrassment. Whether or not you know how to play chess isn't important. What's important is that you dare to break convention. That's what's most important. The reason I was unable to break the board was because I'm limited by the rules. I wholeheartedly wanted to protect the white pieces, so I was forced to be passive everywhere. But you killed the black pieces with the white pieces. Just this one point is far beyond me, said the white-robed man. Tell me, why do you like the color black? Long Chen was dumbfounded. How was he supposed to answer such a question? If you like something, then you like something. Did there have to be a reason? White represents what is light and holy. It shows the way. Black represents destruction and killing. It signifies the end. So I'm very surprised to see you wearing black robes. But now I understand, the game breaker needs to reach a land of death before giving rise to new life. Some things are so simple and right in front of you. But they're like your eyelashes, and they're so close that you can't see them. Sometimes you can only see things clearer when you have a mirror. Good, very good, sighed the white-robed man emotionally. Although this man didn't give off the slightest aura, each of his actions possessed a certain bearing that made others trust him. Despite being a sovereign, he spoke bluntly about his own shortcomings. Just that humility was enough to win Long Chen's praise. Although Long Chen's skin was so thick that it was on the level of an ancestral item, he felt a burning sensation on his cheeks. He shook his head. Junior wouldn't dare to accept Sovereign's praise. There are so many things I don't know that it makes me blush with shame. Sometimes knowing more isn't necessarily a good thing. Imagination is always ahead of reality. Reality has to chase the footsteps of imagination. Without imagination, this world would never progress a single step. The white-robed man didn't retort when Long Chen called him a sovereign. Now Long Chen was certain that this man in front of him was the first-generation sovereign, Yun Shang. He was talking with an expert who had shaken the world. A grand feeling filled Long Chen. Furthermore, many of Sovereign Yun Shang's viewpoints and philosophies were similar to his own. He couldn't help but feel that they were old friends. Senior, do you want to drink a bit? Long Chen took out a jug of wine. This was currently his best wine. It was the first batch of wine that Tu Qianshang had made after advancing to the Life Star realm. Other than the High Priest's wine, it was definitely the best. To be able to drink with the first-generation sovereign, Long Chen would definitely be able to brag in the future. That was like drinking with a god. When he bragged about it in the future, he might not even believe himself. No, a person who's been dead for so many years shouldn't waste your wine. Sovereign Yun Shang smiled. What? Long Chen couldn't help being shocked. Even sovereigns could die? According to reason, by that level, a person should have essentially reached the point of never aging or dying. Their longevity would be almost limitless. The sovereigns had vanished from the continent. But the rumor was that they had simply hidden themselves, secretly protecting the world. When the next dark era descended, the sovereigns would once more appear and lead them against the devils invading them. But now Sovereign Yun Shang had admitted he was dead from his own mouth. That was somewhat difficult for Long Chen to accept. You'll understand in the future. Life and death aren't actually important. What's important is the final result. Junior brother, I'm very happy to have seen you. You will definitely be the one to save the martial heaven continent from this game of death. Sovereign Yun Shang patted Long Chen on the shoulder. From start to end, Sovereign Yun Shang didn't have the slightest arrogance, nor did he act like a supreme expert. Rather than the leader of an era, he seemed more like a respectable big brother speaking to his little brother. You overestimate me. Right now, I'm surrounded by enemies. I can't even save myself. Long Chen felt emotional that Yun Shang would treat him like this, but he also couldn't help but bitterly smile. He had yet to recover from his shock that a sovereign had died. He very much wanted to ask, couldn't a sovereign undergo reincarnation? Couldn't they undergo nirvanic rebirth? Wasn't it said that once a person reached the Nether Passage realm, they would comprehend the profundities of life and death? Now that he looked at Sovereign Yun Shang, Long Chen felt extremely unwell inside. Such a peerless hero had actually died. That was a great pity. Then when he thought about it, if a sovereign was still alive, perhaps the martial heaven continent wouldn't have fragmented into contending powers that had turned the world into such a mess. That was a decision you chose with your instincts. Your path is different from ours. To be surrounded by enemies is also a kind of Tao. We were unable to play this chessboard well. If we had tried to be like you, wiping out black and white pieces together, perhaps this world would be in a different state. However, there aren't so many ifs in this world. Back when I suppressed Evil Moon, I saw a bit of the future and your image. So I decided not to destroy Evil Moon. Instead, I sealed it using a drop of my spirit blood to keep it suppressed. I left a portion of my soul in my spirit blood for your arrival. And now you really have come. In my day, I saw many bits of the future, and the conclusions were all miserable. The continent was fractured, corpses littered the ground, blood flowed in rivers, and all life was annihilated. This place became a graveyard. But this time, I see hope for the martial heaven continent. I see the slightest opportunity when I look at you. But I didn't expect that another person who could affect the fate of the martial heaven continent would appear. A girl took away Evelmun's soul essence. That was originally a gift I had prepared for you. The heavenly Daos really are unfathomable. However, seeing you, I'm at ease. We were unable to accomplish our mission, so we have no choice but to leave it to you. A girl? Was it Leng Yuan? No wonder she hadn't appeared here. She must have found another opportunity. Could it be that the thing she needed was precisely Evelmun's soul essence? This burden's very heavy. I'm afraid I won't be able to carry it. For now, Long Chen didn't worry about Leng Yuan. He bitterly smiled at Sovereign Yun Shang. How was he supposed to become the savior of the world? He had never had such aspirations. He wasn't skilled in saving the world. He was better at exterminating the world. You picked up this burden a long time ago. The people you love are your motivation for fighting. I trust you will do better than anyone else. Alright, I've pretty much used up all the energy in this drop of essence blood. I have to leave. But before leaving, I'll help you out a bit. I'll help you seal Evelmun's soul. For now, you won't be able to use it, so just treat it as a gift for your future self. After saying this, Sovereign Yun Shang vanished along with the space around then, and Long Chen appeared on the altar once more, holding Evelmun's hilt. Die! At this moment, Sha Guangyan and Peng Wansheng launched fierce attacks at him. Wood Spirit Protection! Chu Yao's cry rang out. The ground split open, and huge wooden stakes wove together to form a huge wall. This wall was made of thousands and thousands of wooden stakes. Each of them was 30 meters thick and covered in dark gold runes, and the wall was made of hundreds of layers of them. Chu Yao was going all out to protect Long Chen. Just at this moment, the drop of sovereign blood in the sky fell onto the black saber. The saber let out a heaven-shaking roar and then fell silent. A banging sound rang out and the wooden wall shook violently. Debris was flying everywhere as Peng Wansheng and Sha Guangyan attacked. Long Chen, hurry! The two of them are too powerful for me to hold much longer, cried Chu Yao. Long Chen didn't need Chu Yao's urging. He was pulling as hard as he could, but the saber was too heavy. It was like it had taken root. Get out! Long Chen roared furiously. his divine ring appeared and green scales covered his body. Finally, the stone broke and Evil Moon was pulled out. After pulling it out, he tossed it into the primal chaos space. When it fell inside, it let out a heavy thudding sound. Its weight was absolutely terrifying. For now, he had no time to worry about it. A golden flame sphere rapidly grew in his hand. On the other side of the wall, Peng Wanqing and Sha Guangyan were roaring angrily as they attacked the wooden wall. The thing that infuriated them the most was that Chu Yao's wooden wall possessed its own life energy and was constantly repairing. Now they were experiencing the abnormal defenses of a wood cultivator. Hearing Long Chen's roar inside, they both had a bad feeling. They no longer held back and unleashed their strongest attack. A sand hand and a golden sword slammed into the wooden wall, causing it to instantly explode. Yet, before they could get a look at the situation inside, a huge golden sphere exploded like a star in front of them. Boom. The two of them hadn't even understood what was happening when they were sent flying by a terrifying force. Worst of all, they were covered in golden flames that ignited their bodies. It wasn't just the two of them. The sphere's explosion covered a huge area, and those rank 9 celestials that had survived were also swallowed by it. Fuck, what kind of flame is this? Raged a rank 9 celestial. It felt like oil was stuck to their bodies and they couldn't get rid of it. They were only able to circulate their heavenly Tao energy to slowly extinguish it. Once the flames were extinguished, they looked like birds that had flown out of the fire. Other than their eyes, they were completely black, and a burned smell came from them. Where are they? Sha Guangyan roared, his killing intent raging. 1,000 miles in every direction had been turned to charred land, but Long Chen and Chu Yao had vanished. Of course, the black saber had vanished as well. Bastard! Peng Wanqing and Sha Guangyan both roared furiously, looking almost insane. Their chilly killing intent made the surviving 7 rank 9 celestials shiver. But they could understand what they were feeling. They had all long since heard that there was a priceless treasure sealed in the sovereign's battlefield. So when the Dark Forest had surprisingly invited them into adventure in the spirit world, they had immediately rushed toward this battlefield. But the thick mist surrounding this place had stalled them for many days. Many of them had almost died in the mist. Then when they finally found the priceless treasure, many people had assumed it would land in either Sha Guangyan or Peng Wanqing's hands. Yet, the final result was that the black saber's power had been far more terrifying than any of them had expected, and they were unable to subdue it. Over 1,000 experts were forced to become offerings to it, leaving only the 9 of them alive. As for the black saber, it had been snatched away by Long Chen. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanqing had labored so long for nothing. Well, that wasn't completely true. They had come out with 4 slaps in the face. Regretfully, Sha Guangyan only got 1. The lucky Peng Wanqing was leaving with 3, each more vicious than the last. When they thought about it, they realized all their efforts had ended up benefiting Long Chen. He had snatched away their harvest without standing on ceremony and then bestowed them with a slap in the face. The 7 rank 9 celestials looked at each other, not daring to say a word. They were afraid Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanqing might kill them in their fury. Although they were rank 9 celestials, after Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanqing had appeared, they had known and accepted that the treasure would have no destiny with them. So they hadn't interfered. For them, having the treasure snatched away by Long Chen didn't feel so bad. That was because even if Long Chen didn't get it, they wouldn't have obtained it anyways. Fuck! Sha Guangyan roared and smashed the ground. His core sand had been ruined by Long Chen. The ground was originally a sea of sand, but as a result of the golden flames, it had crystallized, looking like a frozen lake. Sha Guangyan's punch shattered the ground. How could that bastard possess the legendary heaven incinerating flame? Peng Wanqing clenched his teeth furiously. A short while ago, there was an earth flame spirit beast of the heaven incinerating flame that came out of the river of lava on the outskirts of the battlefield. It was still in an immature state, and I tried to obtain it. However, who would have thought that some idiots from the corrupt path would ruin things and allow Long Chen to snatch it away? One of the ancient family alliance's experts suddenly walked forward and pointed at Guyen. Both the trident-wielding ancient race expert and the ancient family alliance expert who had fought over the heaven-incinerating flame back then were present. They both glared at Gui Yen. Everyone's focus turned to Gui Yen. Gui Yen was enraged. He was the only member of the corrupt path remaining here. Although the corrupt path had also moved out in great force, and in truth, they had brought in the greatest number of people this time, the majority of their experts were attacking the forest of life and capturing the spirit race warriors. The corrupt path's higher-ups had warned them not to go mess around on this battlefield. This battlefield was too dangerous, and the majority of those who entered ended up dying. Even rank 9 Celestials might die here. So in comparison, the things that could be obtained from the battlefield weren't worth it. That was why the higher-ups of the corrupt path, the ancient races, and the ancient family alliance had all warned them of the dangers. However, the allure of the ancient battlefield was too great. Despite those warnings, a large portion of people still wanted to test their luck here. Some people who felt themselves to be extraordinary geniuses came because they felt like they were the sons of fate. They felt that the heavens would help them. However, most of those extraordinary geniuses ended up having weaker willpower and dying in the illusion formation. Even a rank 9 Celestial would die there without a strong enough will. There was a phrase in the secular world: "Those who drown are those who know how to swim." This phrase was suitable to the cultivation world as well. The majority of experts listened to warnings. But some experts felt that they were so strong that the warnings didn't apply to them. Of course, some experts were simply supremely stupid and would come regardless of any advice. In truth, Gui Yen hadn't originally been planning on coming here. However, his Ghost King had been destroyed by Long Qin. He was worried that if he stayed in the Forest of Life, he might end up running into him again. That was no different than sending himself into the hands of a Yama King. So he had entered this battlefield, testing his luck. Perhaps if he found a treasure, he could make up for the loss of his Ghost King. Without his Ghost King, he would be amongst the weakest level of rank 9 Celestials. When he had seen the flame dragon in the lava river, he had been ecstatic. In his opinion, if these two hadn't interfered, he would have managed to capture the flame dragon, and there would have been no chance for Long Qin to snatch it away. Now, these two were inverting the truth to push all the blame onto him. He was infuriated. "Fuck off. I was the one who first noticed the heaven-incinerating flame, and the first to capture it. Is it fun to slander others? Although you have more experts on your side, I dare you to try killing me," roared Gui Yen. He could see that these two bastards were extremely sinister and were trying to get him killed by Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanqing. Having been slapped by Long Qin and duped in the end, they were filled with rage that had nowhere to go. Now, the two bastards were trying to point that fury at Gui Yen, who was the only one from the corrupt path here. Pow! Suddenly, a person was slapped hard in the face. However, it wasn't Gui Yen. Peng Wanqing had slapped the trident-wielding ancient race expert. Half his face caved in and blood flowed out. Peng Wanqing's slap was extremely vicious. Not only had he smashed that fellow ancient race expert's face to pulp, but he had used his own heavenly Tao energy to make it more difficult for him to heal. Everyone jumped in shock, not comprehending why Peng Wanqing would slap his own people. "Next time if you dare to use me, I'll kill you." Peng Wanqing glared at the ancient race expert. "With my golden Peng eyes, do you think you'd be able to trick me?" The ancient race expert quivered in terror. This little one knows his mistake. Peng Wanqing had high authority in the ancient races. Even rank 9 Celestials didn't dare to go against him. It was just like Peng Wanqing had said. If Empyreans were the crown prince, Celestials were just some random officers beneath them. This was the power of Empyreans, their absolute domination. Only after he admitted his mistake did the injury to his face slowly begin to heal. "Explain it in detail. What happened?" asked Peng Wanqing icily. This time, the ancient race expert didn't dare to lie at all. He gave a complete explanation of what had happened. "I heard that bastard is also an alchemist and in control of flame energy. With the heaven-incinerating flame, he's like a tiger with wings," said the ancient race expert hatefully. "Who knows how Long Qin entered?" asked Sha Guangyan. He was very curious. The dark forest's relationship with the righteous path was unfriendly. How could the righteous path have sent their disciples in? No one knows. But we can be sure that Long Chen is closely related to the forest of life, said Gui Yen. He brought up his own fight with Long Chen in the forest. At that time, Long Chen had let him off just for some spirit race warriors. Then let us use the dark forest to attack the forest of life and force them to hand over Long Chen and Evil Moon, said Sha Guangyan. Where is the corrupt path's Empyrean? Who did you send? Their agreement was that the ancient races, ancient family alliance, and corrupt path would all send one and only one Empyrean here. That way, they would all have similar power levels and they could work together easier. It's Ling Yueyan, said Gui Yen bitterly. Her. Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing were both badly shocked. Ling Yueyan's name was just that frightening. Why isn't she here? Asked Sha Guangyan. Gui Yen shook his head and sighed. I don't know. I don't even know why the higher-ups allowed her to come. She simply decided to come without asking for permission. Of course, no one dared to say anything. Practically, everyone in the corrupt path avoided her like the plague. Of course, those who wanted to die were the exception. Gui Yen was amongst those. He blessed his fortune that Ling Yueyan hadn't killed him. In the corrupt path, there was another rank 9 celestial who felt himself to be stronger than Gui Yen, to be more handsome than Gui Yen, and who wanted to subdue Ling Yueyan. As a result, his head ended up joining Ling Yueyan's throne. After that, no one dared to say anything to Ling Yueyan. In truth, such a large movement was not suitable for Ling Yueyan to come. The higher-ups hadn't even wanted her to come. She had simply come of her own volition. After coming, she ignored them all, and she didn't even give them any information about her own movements before vanishing. The corrupt experts in the spirit world could only act for themselves. Can you communicate with her? Asked Sha Guangyan. No. She doesn't care about any of us, said Gui Yen. But he didn't add what he was thinking. Those that she cared about all ended up dead. Then we don't need to bother with her. We'll immediately gather our forces and alert the dark forest that we're going to annihilate the forest of life. If they don't want to be destroyed, they have to hand over Evil Moon, said Peng Wanxing, killing intent flashing in his eyes. Long Chen and Chu Yao were rushing away. Long Chen was a streak of light, with lightning wings and lightning runes on his feet, raising his speed to unprecedented heights. Under the cover of starfall, he had pulled Chu Yao out of the range that they could be sensed in just an instant. Long Chen, that's about enough. Let's rest for a bit. After 6 hours of travel, Chu Yao's voice rang out. Long Chen looked at her and was frightened to see her face was pale. He hastily stopped. Are you injured? Chu Yao shook her head. I'm not injured. Your thunder force is just very uncomfortable to me. I'm not afraid of other people's thunder force, but yours is very difficult to bear. Long Chen realized the problem. His thunder force came from the 9 heavens tribulation lightning. Its aim was pure destruction. As for Chu Yao, she cultivated the life Tao. The two of them were incompatible. He immediately put away his thunder force. This really is far enough. We can rest. Long Chen pulled Chu Yao to a nearby lake. The two of them sat on the shore. While running, Long Chen had left behind many misleading tracks. Even if they were being followed, they should have a few days before they caught up. On the way, Chu Yao had been focused on concealing their spiritual fluctuations and auras. Tracking them would be extremely difficult. The only possibility was if they spread out and searched through a large area. But doing so would be suicide. Other than Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing, who else could threaten Long Chen? If the two of them split up, then if they faced Long Chen and Chu Yao alone, they would be in an extremely dangerous position. So Long Chen felt that as long as those two weren't stupid, they wouldn't chase. In other words, the two of them were essentially safe. This battlefield was so huge that looking for the two of them would be like searching for a needle in an ocean. I'm sorry. Both my thunder force and flame energy are incompatible with your wood energy, said Long Chen. The only good thing was that he wasn't a lightning cultivator, nor was he a flame cultivator. Otherwise, his aura really would be difficult for Chu Yao to get close to. Now that Long Chen willed it, All traces of his lightning and flame energy vanished. That lifted the pressure on Chu Yao. Why be so polite? After being apart for so long, have you started feeling unfamiliar with me? Chu Yao smiled lightly. How could that be possible? I'm your future husband. How could we be unfamiliar with each other? Long Chen also smiled. He was filled with gratitude inside. With Chu Yao's talent, position, and beauty, she had countless suitors. But she declared him to be her husband and refused all those people. The only one she allowed inside her heart was him. Chu Yao leaned against Long Chen's shoulder. She looked at the calm lake. In this moment, she felt blessed. Did you manage to get the saber? Were there any problems? After a moment, Chu Yao suddenly asked. The black saber was absolutely terrifying. She was naturally a bit worried that it would cause trouble for Long Chen. Originally, I was just testing it, but I didn't expect to really get it with a certain person's assistance. Chu Yao, guess who I saw? Long Chen instantly became excited, almost looking like a child. What would make you this excited? Don't tell me that you saw the sovereign? Chu Yao laughed. How did you know? Long Chen was startled. Now Chu Yao was startled. You really saw the sovereign? Long Chen told Chu Yao about what he had gone through in that mysterious space. In truth, he was trying to keep his expression calm, but there was simply no way to control himself. Hearing Long Chen's story, Chu Yao was completely shocked. She held his hand, amazed. Long Chen, you're amazing. Even a sovereign has high hopes for you. You'll definitely become a world-shaking figure. Long Chen shook his head. I think it's unlikely. I don't have that kind of ambition, nor do I have such a grand goal. I'm not like the sovereigns who protected this world with their full power. In my heart, I just need to protect you and the others. As for the rest of the world, they had nothing to do with me. Long Chen was full of respect and reverence for the sovereigns. That was because he would never be able to be like them. They had been completely selfless in their defense of the continent. He had never thought to be such a grand person. All he wanted to do was protect what he had. He was selfish. He was unable to be like the sovereigns. Although Sovereign Yunshang didn't tell him how he had died, he trusted that godlike figures like them were capable of existing forever. There had to be some kind of secret behind their deaths. That secret was very likely closely related to the Martial Heaven continent. For the Martial Heaven continent, the sovereigns had paid far too much. If it was for the people he loved, Long Chen wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his life. But he was unable to do something like that for people unrelated to him, and certainly not for his enemies. So he felt ashamed of Sovereign Yunshang's praise. He really wasn't able to accept it. Long Chen, don't be humble. Sovereigns weren't born that way. They reached the peak of the martial path step by step just like you. According to what I know, the 5 generations of sovereigns all had to advance through countless setbacks. They had to kill countless powerful enemies to reach their unrivaled level. It's very similar to your own experiences, and just from your conversation with Sovereign Yunshang, it seems your characters are very similar. To be powerful but humble, to be confident but not conceited, no matter what realm you reach, you never forget your original heart. That's the sign of a real expert, said Chu Yao, proud of him. Long Chen felt a burst of emotion and pulled Chu Yao into his embrace. My treasure, you're right. Keep praising me and don't stop. I feel my vanity being satisfied. Long Chen. Chu Yao pushed him away, rebuking, you're no longer a child. Is your skin really this thick? Chu Yao smiled as she rebuked him. This shameless nature of Long Chen's was still the same as back in the Phoenix Cry Empire. This meant he was still the same Long Chen. Can you take out Evil Moon for me to get a look? Asked Chu Yao curiously. Just from the fact that it was worth a sovereign sealing it, this saber had to be absolutely terrifying. Even Chu Yao was very curious. Just what kind of existence was Evil Moon for it to be able to challenge a sovereign? Boom. Long Chen took out Evil Moon, and its huge weight caused the ground to split open. Even Long Chen was unable to handle its weight. Spirit Wood Foundation. Chu Yao formed a hand seal, and wooden stakes grew out of the ground, forming a platform. Only once there were hundreds of thick wooden stakes did the ground beneath the two of them stop sinking. But cracks had spread in 100 miles, and the calm lake had vanished into the cracks of the earth. Chu Yao embarrassedly stuck out her tongue. What a terrifying weight. Long Chen was also embarrassed. Back when he had taken it out at first, he had thought it was difficult to pull out because of the platform's formation. He hadn't expected Evelmoon's real weight to actually be so high. Without the green dragon battle armor, he was unable to hold it, embarrassing him. Fortunately, Chu Yao was nice and didn't laugh at him. This pitch-black saber had an image of a dragon brandishing its claws and baring its fangs on one side. It was menacing and powerful. As for its tip, it was not a straight edge. Instead, the tip was a crescent moon shape. Although the blade was pitch-black, it gave off a flickering, shining visual illusion. It was like the fang of a bloodthirsty devil. With the dragon image and the crescent moon tip, altogether, Evil Moon gave off a feeling of terror. Just looking at it would make a person feel like their soul was being sucked in. It was an extremely dangerous, evil weapon. There was no way it could be used. The hilt of the saber was originally blank, but now a divine mark had appeared on it. This divine mark contained the aura of a sovereign. Rainbow light shined within it. It was the Yun character written in ancient scripture. It was the seal left behind by sovereign Yun Shang. Yun Shang, you bastard, you've already dead, but you still seal me. Just wait, when I break out of this seal, I'll slaughter all the creatures in your world. Suddenly, a furious roar came from within the saber. The black saber shook violently as if some kind of power was trying to break out of the saber. However, the sovereign's seal prevented that energy from coming out of the saber. Just keep bragging. This is my first time being so amazed by someone's bragging. I wonder, is your bragging in the realm of believing your own bragging? Asked Long Chen. Shut up. You insolent brat. If it weren't for Yun Shang, I could kill you with just a thought. Roared the saber. Then if I was a sovereign, I would kill you 10,000 times with a fart. Who doesn't know how to brag? But does bragging have any use? Snorted Long Chen disdainfully. Brat, I might have fallen in your hands, but you should keep in mind that using me will invoke karma on you. That karma isn't one that will end with just your death. It will slaughter all your descendants until your bloodline comes to an end. Right now, your smartest move would be to release me from this seal. I can accept you as a disciple and kill all your enemies in this world, said the saber. Because of the sovereign's seal, your soul-bewitching arts have lost most of their effect. You shouldn't embarrass yourself by trying to use them. I'm not an idiot like Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanqing. I'm so experienced, I've eaten more salt than you've eaten rice in your life. Long Chen's lip curled into a sneer. Long Chen, it's older than you, reminded Chu Yao. This bragging was a bit too exaggerated. After all, this was a weapon that had come from the era of sovereigns. It's fine, a saber doesn't eat rice, so I'm still right. Long Chen shrugged. Bastard, you dare to mock me? Black chi suddenly exploded out of the saber along with a terrifying aura. The black saber slowly rose into the air, unleashing boundless killing intent. It looked like a berserk devil god about to annihilate this entire world. But then the sovereign's seal on it activated. Evil Moon trembled, and became unable to release its power. So, you even know how to dance. Since I've managed to reunite with my dear Chu Yao, we should celebrate. Please keep dancing. Don't worry, if you dance well, there will be a generous tip at the end, declared Long Chen. With the sovereign seal, this evil moon wasn't able to cause any waves. The sovereign was truly a sovereign. A single drop of blood could suppress anything. You! Evil Moon roared furiously, and then fell from the sky, silent. Chu Yao's wooden platform blew apart from the impact. Chu Yao had to summon it again. Looking at the listless evil moon, Chu Yao couldn't help feeling some sympathy. Had it died of anger? She understood Long Chen far too well. Falling into his hands was truly its misfortune. Don't act dead. I have some questions for you. Long Chen patted Evil Moon. He was very interested in it. But no matter how he called out to it, it refused to reply. He didn't know whether it had really passed out from anger or was just intentionally ignoring him. Seeing this, Long Chen rolled up his pants and took off his shoes. After taking off his shoes, he even took off his socks. Chu Yao looked at Long Chen uncomprehendingly. She had no idea what he was thinking. Sigh, the past few days have been so tiring. I've gotten calluses all over my feet. This blade looks sharp enough for me to give myself a pedicure. Long Chen began to raise Evil Moon to his feet. Stop. You damn bastard, how dare you treat me like this? Stop. A panicked and enraged voice came from the saber. What did you say? I didn't hear anything that I wanted to hear. Long Chen touched his foot to Evil Moon. Suddenly, light flashed out of Evil Moon, and Long Chen immediately pulled back his foot. However, a sharp light from Evil Moon still cut his soul, causing blood to pour out. Fortunately, he was fast enough, or his foot would have been cut in half. I suppose you are sharp. Long Chen was startled. Such a heavy weapon should be focused on heaviness. But it was unexpected that it was also this sharp. Furthermore, his blood was pouring out like a flood from this injury. There was some special energy on the wound trying to make his blood run dry. That also shocked him. Even though Evil Moon was sealed, it still possessed such a strange power. Before Long Chen could stop the blood, Chu Yao pressed a hand to his back. Life energy poured into him, and the wound slowly closed. The strange energy also vanished. What a terrifying power. It took quite a bit of energy, said Chu Yao. As a wood cultivator, healing was her forte. For someone else, even a limb could be regrown by her in an instant. But just that tiny cut to Long Chen's foot that barely broke the skin had taken an enormous amount of energy to heal. After a moment's shock, Long Chen silently put his socks and shoes back on. Evil Moon sneered, "Little brat, although I might be sealed, don't think you can subdue me. If you're smart, you'll release me as soon as possible. I can still go with the conditions I gave you for now, but if you take too long." After putting on his shoes, Long Chen stood up and slowly untied his belt. "Chu Yao, you should turn around. Evil Moon isn't very obedient right now, so I'll use my core elixir to baptize it, let it undergo rebirth." Long Chen stamped on Evil Moon with a foot. His belt was untied. Chu Yao realized what he was doing and immediately turned away, blushing. "Hey, what do you think you're doing?" A furious and alarmed voice rang out. "Child, don't be afraid. Let me baptize you in my divine elixir. You will be completely reborn. Through my baptism, you will no longer be violent. You will no longer be lost. My divine elixir will guide you. It will ignite the lighthouse of your life. You will no longer be a lost sheep. Your life will finally have meaning and direction." Divine light suddenly began to bathe Long Chen's face as he spoke devoutly and piously. Chu Yao couldn't hold back a chuckle. Although her back was facing him, just hearing the nonsense he was spouting, she could imagine his righteous expression. "Bastard, don't you dare. You can't," cried out Evil Moon. Evil Moon struggled, but it was sealed, and the power it could use was limited. With Long Chen stamping on it, there was no way for it to injure him. It violently trembled. "Child, my divine elixir is coming. I haven't drank a lot of water these days, so it might be a bit yellow. You have to carefully taste it and make sure you experience it fully. Don't be afraid, only by breaking the past can you build success in the future. Without experiencing the pain of the cocoon, how will you one day become a butterfly? Ready yourself. The divine baptism is about to become." Long Chen took a deep breath, preparing himself to unleash the divine baptism. "Bastard, fine. I admit defeat. Let me go, and don't you dare piss." Evelmun's voice was full of rage and unwillingness, but it still admitted its defeat. "You really don't want my divine baptism? This is my first time offering my baptism to others. My essence has become very thick. Do you not want to consider it?" asked Long Chen. "Long Chen, you're a monster. I admit defeat. If you want to ask something, just ask," sighed Evil Moon. Long Chen smiled evilly. He had finally grabbed this evil blade's weakness. It could be counted as a small bargaining chip. Divine items possessed item spirits that were essentially as intelligent as people. The stronger the item spirit, the greater their dignity. They would be even more offended by an insult than a human expert. Only then did Long Chen stop preparing for his divine baptism. Putting away his divine tool, he tidied his clothes. Then tell me, when you fought Sovereign Yunshang back then, how many exchanges did you last before being defeated? Long Chen wanted to know just how strong Evil Moon was. For it to dare to challenge a sovereign, it had to be extraordinary. This question, Evil Moon began to sputter. Long Chen and Chu Yao exchanged a confused look. Long Chen's expression became odd. 800 exchanges? He probed. A bit lower. 80 exchanges? A bit lower. 50 exchanges? A bit lower again. 30. 20. 10. 5. Fuck, don't tell me that you were defeated in just one move? Every time Long Chen asked, Evil Moon would reply that it was a bit lower. Evil Moon didn't reply this time. Long Chen raged, fuck, after bragging so much, I thought you actually had some skill. What a waste. Long Chen kicked Evil Moon in his rage. Evil Moon tumbled twice through the air, while Long Chen's shoe exploded and his foot broke. What do you think a sovereign is? Just how many people in this world dare to challenge one? No matter how you put it, at least I had the bravery to fight against him. Just that is enough for me to laugh arrogantly. Roared Evil Moon. What are you going to laugh about? You're the idiot who couldn't even receive a single attack from him. Don't you feel ashamed for saying you could challenge him? Cursed Long Chen. He really was angry. Originally, he had thought he had obtained a priceless treasure that might allow him to dominate this world if he used it well. But now he found that this blade wasn't able to receive a single attack from a sovereign. That was too disappointing. He felt like he had been duped. What do you know? The sovereigns stood at the peak of this world. You didn't live in that era, so how could you know how terrifying a sovereign is? Even if I wasn't a match for the sovereign, I killed one of his followers. Who could compare to such an accomplishment? I absorbed the souls of all those ants at the altar, so don't try to dupe me. I know your human race only had 5 sovereigns. Ignoring the sovereigns, their followers were also peak existences. In all of history, I, Dragonbone Evil Moon, am the only one to kill a sovereign's follower. Evil Moon roared back at Long Chen. Chu Yao stared in shock as one man and one saber cursed at each other. She covered her mouth, a strange expression in her eyes. She was unable to understand how things had developed to this point. Just from Long Chen's expression, she could tell that he really was angry. She didn't know why he was so angry though. You killed a follower and then were subdued in one move by the sovereign? And then you had the face to say you dared to challenge a sovereign? In all my years, I've never encountered anyone as shameless as you. Tell me, how did you manage to make your skin so thick? I'm not going to argue with a little brat. Do you think an ant knows anything of this world? You haven't reached the realm, so everything you know now isn't worth a damn. Cursed Evil Moon. Long Chen, calm down. We can discuss this properly. Seeing Long Chen's chest heaving with rage, Chu Yao interrupted. Long Chen took a deep breath and suppressed his anger. Although the fact that Evil Moon had been defeated by Sovereign Yunshang in one move disappointed him, Evil Moon was right. Anyone who dared to challenge a sovereign could not be ordinary. Fine, I won't bother with that then. Tell me, how did that battle back then happen? Asked Long Chen. I'm not your prisoner. It'd be best if you were more polite when you spoke to me, said Evil Moon frostily. Fine, the divine baptism ceremony can start now. Long Chen once more untied his belt. The divine baptism was unrivaled. In the end, the terrifying Evil Moon was scared of the threat of Long Chen's urine and explained everything. Seeing this made Chu Yao shake her head. Evil Moon was an evil weapon, but Long Chen was even more evil. He never did things the way a normal person would. Through Evil Moon, Long Chen learned that it came from a devil world. This was something he had expected. However, the devil world was far greater than he had imagined. There were demon devil worlds, blood devil worlds, human devil worlds, and more, all of which combined were the total devil world. There were many different races within the devil world. As for Evil Moon, it wasn't originally a weapon. It had actually been a two-headed dragon that had charged into this world. Its bones had been refined into this weapon. Back when Long Chen had been looking to learn some of the ancient arts in the battlefield, he had seen a large claw smash down from the sky. Evil Moon had been the master of that claw. However, Evil Moon said that its body had been destroyed by Yun Shang, and now its soul resided in the saber. It was a similar existence to an item spirit. Originally, it was a dark evil dragon. Since it had been refined from its bones, it was now called Dragon Bone Evil Moon. Long Chen couldn't help being shocked. No wonder Evil Moon was so heavy. Sovereign Yun Shang had destroyed its physical body and refined all its essence into this blade. It seemed Sovereign Yun Shang had been intent on giving him a great gift. When Long Chen asked why Evil Moon had come to attack the spirit world, it replied that at that time, the spatial walls between the spirit world and the demon devil world it came from had become extremely weak. So it had chosen to enter. Originally, its target was the martial heaven continent. But the spatial barrier between the demon devil world and the martial heaven continent was too sturdy, and experts on its level couldn't pass through it. That was why the goal had been to come through the spirit world, setting it up as a stronghold before invading the martial heaven continent. However, they had met with catastrophe. As soon as they had entered, Sovereign Yun Shang had led an army of experts to annihilate them. That was when it had been sealed. According to Evil Moon, they were the first wave of invaders in the spirit world. At that time, the Dark Forest hadn't existed. When Long Chen asked about the Dark Forest, it said that they came from a branch of the demon devil world. They were tree demons. Although it could be said that they were on the same side, they weren't actually friendly with each other. How is it that the Dark Forest managed to dominate this place while you were annihilated? Asked Long Chen. Are you stupid? Do you think we were weaker than those wooden-brained idiots? They had a complete advantage compared to us. When we attacked, the spatial channel was opened as much as possible, and we ended up fighting against a sovereign right off the bat. As for when they invaded, the martial heaven continent was in chaos, or they'd never have managed to dominate the spirit world like this, raged Dragonbone Evil Moon. Long Chen found that as long as he raised a question about Evil Moon's power, it would immediately strike back, conveniently giving him some new information. Then why did you want to invade the martial heaven continent at all? Asked Long Chen. This was the crux. Who knows? It was the orders from higher-ups. We were just following orders, said Evil Moon coldly. Orders from higher-ups? What is that supposed to mean? It means what it means. I wasn't qualified to know anything further. Seeing Long Chen once more beginning to untie his belt, Evil Moon roared, I don't know. If you really want to humiliate me, then I'd rather kill myself. Long Chen, leave it be. Perhaps it really doesn't know, suggested Chu Yao upon seeing Long Chen force such a terrifying evil weapon to such a state. You've misunderstood. I just didn't tie my belt tight enough before this. Long Chen smiled mischievously, but Chu Yao clearly didn't believe him. He thought about it for a moment before asking, Evil Moon, you dared to challenge a sovereign. Someone like you is qualified to be my weapon. Assist me, and I will one day return your freedom. What nonsense, it's simply impossible. With your current power, I could kill you effortlessly if this sovereign seal wasn't keeping me in check. You think you're fit for me to help you? What a huge joke. If you really do try to force me, I'd rather die, sneered Evil Moon. Long Chen was startled. Originally, he had thought that this evil fellow would agree and then use its evil aura to slowly infect him and try to gain control of him. But instead, it had directly refused him, and so stubbornly at that. Long Chen also didn't dare to force things. He had just been trying to scare it before. Even if it didn't submit, he wouldn't really pee on it. Otherwise, how was he supposed to use it in the future? He smiled calmly. Right now, you refuse because I'm too weak, correct? Then what if I become someone on the same level as a sovereign? Evil Moon paused for a moment before saying, we can discuss it after you reach that level. As a member of the Dark Evil Dragon race, I definitely won't lower my head to a weakling. That would be an insult to the dragon race. Are you really a descendant of the dragon race? But of course. The Dark Evil Dragon is the direct descendant of the true dragons. Although we left the true dragon race, our bloodline is still pure. Even purer than my spirit blood? Asked Long Chen. So what if your spirit blood is pure? You're just a human. The power of your spirit blood is limited. Just how many of the dragon race's divine abilities are you able to use? Snorted Evil Moon disdainfully. However, Long Chen could hear its jealousy. Clearly, his dragon blood was the purest essence blood of a true dragon. He asked some more questions, but Evil Moon seemed to have realized what Long Chen was doing and refused to answer him any longer. Long Chen wasn't able to dredge up any more valuable information. Evil Moon, I won't make things hard on you. Your seal was placed by Sovereign Yunshang. He has given you to me, and to put it frankly, you're like a slave. However, I will treat you with the appropriate respect. The thing is though, respect must be mutual. If you don't want to, you cannot help me. But when I use you, you can't cause any intentional trouble for me. Otherwise, no matter how strong you might be as a weapon, since I can't use it, I might as well toss you into some manure. I, Long Chen, never say any empty words. I won't force you to help, but if you try to bring me down at a critical moment, you can just spend the rest of your life stuck in manure, warned Long Chen. This Dragonbone Evil Moon was an incomparably terrifying existence. If used well, it could save his life. But if it caused trouble for him in the middle of a fight, he might lose his life. So he had to warn it. Fine, I'll accept this, said Evil Moon before going completely silent. Long Chen nodded and put it away. It was so heavy that unless he entered his strongest state, there was no way for him to use it. Although he had received this promise from Evil Moon, he still had to be careful. Who knew whether or not this evil fellow would cause more trouble? Chu Yao had mostly recovered, so the two of them didn't tarry. They rushed off to the Forest of Life. When Chu Yao saw the Forest of Life, she immediately fell in love with it. This place was like paradise for her. Spirit race warriors immediately came to greet them when they arrived. Long Chen asked what had transpired while he had been away. They told him that the spirit race warriors had abandoned their front lines and had all retreated back to the Forest of Life. Now their border was lined with their spirit beasts ready to fight at any time. Although a few human experts had tried to sneak in, after being mercilessly slaughtered by the spirit beasts, no more came. Long Chen nodded. Those bastards viewed the spirit race as prey, so this was the only way to protect them. However, as a result of this, their earnings had suddenly come to a halt. So many experts had entered the spirit world, but now their candy was taken away after just a taste. They definitely wouldn't retreat just like this. Although the current situation looked calm, it was the calm before the storm. Long Chen could smell a crisis descending. The two of them got on a flying magical beast that brought them deep into the Forest of Life. Chu Yao was just as stunned by the Forest of Life's beauty as Long Chen and the others had been when they had first seen it. The dream butterflies flew all around her, not leaving for a long time. Chu Yao said that these spirit creatures liked her and asked her to stay forever. This was Chu Yao's first time feeling such a strong sense of belonging. When the flying beast brought them to the floating islands, Chu Yao was intoxicated with the scenery. This was a miracle of life. When they reached the life god tree, Chu Yao didn't wait for Long Chen to say anything. She directly rushed over and knelt on the ground, forming some strange hand seals with her hands in accordance with some ancient ceremony. Warm light descended from the heavens, landing on Chu Yao's body. Mist floated around her, making her look like the divine emissary of the life god. I didn't think the human race would produce a cultivator with such intimate life energy. She formed an instant resonance with the life god tree. The spirit queen appeared beside Long Chen, staring in shock at Chu Yao, who was bathed in the divine light. Chu Yao was in a strange state. Her eyes were closed and she spread her arms, seeming to embrace this entire world. A green light appeared on her forehead. It gradually grew clearer, revealing that it was a soft shoot. The soft shoot germinated, sprouting a tender green leaf. First one, then two, then three. The 3 leaves slowly spread open, glistening. Dense runes covered them, and those runes began to interweave, showing a mystical scene. That scene contained boundless life forms evolving. The Tao begets 1, 1 begets 2, 2 begets 3, 3 begets all things. This is the life Tao, praised the Spirit Queen, pleasantly surprised. The 3 leaves revolved, forming a cycle. Life energy bloomed from Chu Yao's forehead. Right now, she was in a strange connection with the life god tree. It was like she was communicating with all life. At some point, Meng Qi, Tang Wan'er, and the others appeared below the life god tree as well. Seeing that familiar figure that they hadn't seen in so many years, Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er covered their mouths, tears streaming down their faces. Eventually, the divine light slowly faded, and Chu Yao reopened her eyes. The mark on her forehead faded as well, however, now a 3-petal flower appeared in her eyes. Only once that flower image faded did Chu Yao's eyes focus once more. Seeing Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er, she hugged them, her voice lost in her tears. After parting last time, it had been many years. They had all experienced much suffering and misery. Seeing each other now, they had 1,000 things they wanted to say, but were unable to say a single word. Their tears said everything. The 3 of them were crying, yet they were also laughing. In this cruel and merciless world, a safe reunion was a rare luxury. After a long while, they finally calmed down. They held hands and began to chat, seeming like they had an infinite amount of things to tell each other. Chu Yao's return raised the entire atmosphere of the Dragon Blood Legion. If it weren't for the current situation, they would probably have started a huge celebration. There was also no way to eat meat here, as life was sacred to the forest of life. They wouldn't kill any life forms just for food. During the past few days, the spirit race warriors had been treating them to fruit and fresh water, and everyone else could only survive on those. However, the spirit world's fruit were priceless treasures in the outside world. They were all exceptionally delicious. However, in the end, they were still fruit, and to the Dragon Blood Legion that was accustomed to stuffing their faces with meat, it was getting hard to endure. Of course, they all had rations on them, but they felt like eating meat in the forest of life would be disrespectful. So despite accompanying beautiful women every day, it was getting hard to endure. "Boss, don't you think we should have a celebration today?" Gu Yang rubbed his head awkwardly. Gu Yang was forced to ask this. Everyone else had already expressed their feelings to Gu Yang, and had made him their voice. Just from their expressions, Long Chen knew what they wanted. It really is a day worth celebrating. But we're in a very dense situation right now, and we need to be careful. It's not the right time for a celebration. Hearing this, all the Dragon Blood warriors were filled with disappointment. But they didn't dare to complain. So, the situation outside is already progressing. We have to prepare ourselves to defend the forest of life, so everyone can go to the front lines. I've prepared medicinal pills for all of you. Your mental realms have risen greatly, so you increase your cultivation bases rapidly without worry. Long Chen tossed Gu Yang a spatial ring packed with medicinal pills. The Dragon Blood warriors' mental realms had far surpassed their cultivation realms now. They could increase their cultivation bases without worry. The Dragon Blood warriors were happy to hear that, and immediately rushed off to the front lines. The front lines weren't part of the forest of life, and they could eat meat happily there. Guoran was about to leave too when Long Chen grabbed him. "Don't get too excited." Long Chen took out a small bucket of silver liquid. Guoran almost cried out when he saw it. Despite Long Chen's warning, he almost started dancing from excitement. "How do you have this much mithril essence?" "Can you use the mithril essence immediately?" asked Long Chen. After all, Guoran's armor and weapons had already been forged. There was no way for him to completely recreate them at this time. A huge battle was on the verge of erupting. Of course, back when I first forged my armor, I left myself a way to upgrade it. I put an expansion rune on every piece so that if I could get mithril, all I would have to do is drip it onto the rune, and it will automatically spread it throughout the item to increase its flexibility, said Guoran confidently. Guoran might be unreliable in other aspects, but when it came to forging, he was extremely trustworthy. Although the divine flame crystals had been forged into ancestral items, without mithril essence, those ancestral weapons were all crude. They possessed the necessary hardness, but lacked the flexibility. A powerful impact wouldn't be cushioned at all and would lead to the items cracking and breaking apart. Without the right material, It had been impossible to make up for this deficit. So Guoran, after considering this problem from every angle, had finally decided on a trick to remedy this. He had inlaid an expansion rune on every ancestral item he had forged. That was a mysterious rune from the ethereal crafting secret record. It could be likened to a person's arteries. It formed a network throughout the item with an opening exposed. Once he dropped some mithril inside it and activated the rune, the item would automatically absorb the mithril, increasing its flexibility. This was a completely secret technique that was unavailable to the rest of the world. Then that's good. I suppose you can store the mithril essence yourself, right? Asked Long Chen. It's no problem. My forging table has its own space for storing material. Guoran directly took the mithril essence. Alright, then here's some more. Vat after vat of mithril essence appeared in front of Guoran. These huge vats almost made him faint from shock. He was unable to believe his own eyes. He directly took it all away, feeling like he was dreaming. Work hard. The sooner you finish all the armor and weapons, the better. This relates to everyone's lives, so don't be sloppy, said Long Chen. He knew that neither Sha Guangyan nor Peng Wanxing would leave things as they were. Having slapped in the face so many times, they would definitely be coming for retribution. Furthermore, Evil Moon was in his hands. They would be coming to take it back. Things were calm now, but once they launched their attack, it would definitely be a thunderous blow. Most importantly, the Dark Forest power was absolutely overwhelming. The Forest of Life was fundamentally unable to block them. If he wanted to resolve the Forest of Life's crisis, they would have to rely on themselves. Guoran nodded and told him not to worry. He parted with the rest of the Dragonblood Legion. Based on his excited expression, he probably wasn't even interested in eating meat now. In the blink of an eye, the Dragonblood warriors left valiantly, looking like they were marching out to battle. The Spirit Emperor even asked if Long Chen was planning on launching an attack. Long Chen knew that these fellows were simply acting like this so they could eat meat, so he told the Spirit Emperor that it still wasn't time for the battle, but they had to prepare for the battle. When he asked how the Forest of Life's power was developing, the Spirit Emperor told him that the Life God Tree had produced 800,000 spirit generals in the past few days. That was equivalent to 800,000 soul transformation experts. But these spirit generals were no ordinary soul transformation experts. Their combat power was on the level of rank 6 to rank 7 celestials, which made it so that they were almost a match for ordinary life star experts. At this moment, the Spirit Emperor waved his staff, and divine light shined. A mass of spirit race warriors appeared in front of Long Chen. These 800,000 warriors were born as a result of the help of the soil from Long Chen's primal chaos space. They immediately knelt on the ground, kowtowing to Long Chen. There's no need for this. Long Chen hastily waved his hands. He never kowtowed to others, and he didn't want anyone to kowtow to him either. He didn't like etiquette. This is their way of expressing their gratefulness. Without you, they wouldn't exist. Please accept their thanks, said the Spirit Emperor. Long Chen had no way around it, and could only endure as they continued with this etiquette. After kowtowing, the Spirit Emperor ordered them away. Their spirits were only just born so they can't communicate with you. This was the only way for them to expression themselves, said the Spirit Emperor. Long Chen nodded. This kind of detail wasn't a big deal. At this time, Chu Yao, Meng Qi, and Tang Wan'er now came back over. It seemed they had finally calmed down. Spirit Emperor, there's something important I need your help with. I have an elder who lost the majority of her longevity, causing her to lose her beauty. Do you have a method to replenish what she lost? Seeing Chu Yao, Long Chen immediately thought of this matter. Chu Yao's heart began to pound anxiously. Is she from the human race? Asked the Spirit Emperor. Yes, her cultivation base is. Long Chen looked at Chu Yao. Her cultivation base is at the Great Circle of Life Star. If it weren't for me, my master might already be attempting to break through the Nether Passage realm, said Chu Yao. This is simple. The human race's life energy is very limited, and making up for it isn't difficult. There's no need to disturb the Life God Tree for this. I can help you myself, said the Spirit Emperor. Her staff began to shine, and a small shoot grew out of its head. The small shoot was shining, and a holy and pure energy gathered in it. Its light felt like it could cleanse a person's soul. 3 drops fell from the soft shoot and into a wooden bottle. The Spirit Emperor handed the bottle to Chu Yao. She could tell that Long Chen was asking this for Chu Yao. A single drop is enough to replenish her longevity. You can keep the other 2 drops, said the Spirit Emperor. Many thanks, Spirit Emperor. Chu Yao carefully received the bottle. Thinking of how her master's lost longevity and beauty could be restored, she was incredibly emotional. Even her hands were trembling. With Chu Yao's problem resolved, Long Chen said, Spirit Emperor, the battle's about to start. How is the Forest of Life's total power compared to the Dark Forest? Can you give me a full summary? When Long Chen brought up the power difference between both sides, the Spirit Emperor sadly shook her head. Although the Forest of Life now has 800,000 new spirit generals, our true power is still probably less than 1/10 of the Dark Forest. Due to the passageway the Dark Forest established in the Martial Heaven continent, they managed to absorb the air of death and resentment that exists there due to the constant battles. It was the best nourishment for the Dark Forest. The heaven-devouring forest that existed there was nothing more than the tip of the iceberg. The heaven-devouring forest simply constantly funneled the Martial Heaven continent's air of resentment into their channel as feed for the Dark Forest. To put it one way, they were just some workers for them. This is why I didn't want you to participate in this battle when you first arrived. One reason is because I didn't want to implicate you, but the other reason is that this is simply a hopeless battle. The Spirit Emperor sighed helplessly, looking at the huge life god trees sorrowfully. Chu Yao, Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er were all startled. They hadn't expected the Spirit Emperor to have such a pessimistic view of their odds. Fortunately the others had all gone, or everyone's morale would probably have received a grievous blow. The life god tells me you are the lucky star that has come to save us. But the power difference is just too great. I really don't know a better way to put it. The Spirit Emperor was unable to understand what humans were thinking. But seeing their expressions, she knew she had said something wrong to them. Spirit Emperor, I just want to know our total power, what our strengths and weaknesses are, and anything else of particular note. Just leave the rest to me, said Long Chen. There was no need for him to think of a better way to phrase this. The Forest of Life's life forms didn't care about such things. The Spirit Emperor nodded and began explaining the situation, with the 4 of them listening attentively. The Forest of Life was not good at fighting. The only ones capable of fighting against enemies were the Spirit Race Warriors and the Spirit Beasts. The huge trees of the Forest of Life were unable to fight. They could not participate in the front lines. They were pure existences of life. Death and resentment were poison to them. This was why Yao Ling, the forest divinity that Long Chen had encountered back then, had to rely on weak villagers to bring her flesh despite being in possession of great power herself. Long Chen wasn't surprised by this at all. He had long since known of the Forest of Life's greatest weakness. But the tree spirits could still help them in battle. They could form a connection with the fighters, sharing their life energy. As long as they were within the spirit world, their life energy could be shared with the Dragon Blood Warriors. As long as the Dragon Blood Warriors didn't die instantaneously, all injuries could be rapidly healed. That kind of ability was very heaven-defying in itself. After a general explanation of the Forest of Life's total power, the Spirit Emperor gave Long Chen a green leaf. It merged into his hand, and an image of it appeared on his palm. The Spirit Emperor said that this was a leaf directly connected to the Life God Tree. Through it, Long Chen could use his spiritual strength to send orders to the Life God Tree, and the Life God Tree would transmit its orders to all the Forest of Life's creatures. It was the most effective way of commanding them. Long Chen nodded and comforted the Spirit Emperor, promising that as long as he was here, the Forest of Life would be fine. He left with Chu Yao, Meng Qi and Tang Wan, but they didn't leave the Forest of Life. Instead, they went to the floating islands. One of the floating islands had a waterfall that rained down beautifully under the sunlight. The 4 of them sat atop a giant tree leaf and soaked in the scenery. The most intoxicated one would have to be Long Chen. After so much effort, he had succeeded in brazenly leaning on all three beauties. At first, the three of them were a bit uneasy like this, and Tang Wanner pinched Long Chen a few times. But Long Chen succeeded in having all four of them relax eventually. "This place is so beautiful. I really wish we could stay here forever," said Tang Wanner as she tossed a crystalline grape into Long Chen's mouth. Long Chen was lying on Chu Yao's leg, holding Meng Qi's hand, and munching on the grapes Tang Wanner fed him. This kind of blessing was something he wouldn't trade for anything. Long Chen closed his eyes and enjoyed this blessing, simply grunting his agreement. But the dark forest wants to destroy this beauty. "They've already destroyed so much," sighed Chu Yao. When she thought about how the forest of life was going to be replaced with the dark forest, she was infuriated. "Don't worry, Long Chen definitely has a plan, or he wouldn't have made such a promise. Right, Long Chen?" Meng Qi smiled. Said Long Chen vaguely as he continued lying there. "Long Chen, do you really have a way to handle the dark forest?" asked Tang Wanner, once more dropping a grape into his mouth. What kind of plan? Can you tell us?" probed Tang Wanner. The three women smiled at each other. Long Chen usually liked to keep his battle plans to himself, so hearing that he agreed to tell them, they were happy. "Can you tell us already?" After waiting a long time, Tang Wanner got impatient. Now Long Chen sounded like he was just talking in his sleep. Meng Qi and Tang Wanner speechlessly looked at Tang Wanner. Tang Wanner was just about to pinch Long Chen when she suddenly had a thought. Suppressing her anger, she once more fed Long Chen a crystalline grape. Conveniently, she also snuck in another grape-sized crystalline object in his mouth as well. Chu Yao and Meng Qi stared at her in shock. Tang Wanner simply gestured for them to be quiet, an evil smile on her face. The second grape unleashed a loud crunching sound. Long Chen shot up, spitting out what was in his mouth. "Fuck, are you trying to kill me? You fed me a spirit stone," raged Long Chen when he saw the fragments. Meng Qi, Chu Yao, and Tang Wanner all laughed. Tang Wanner heartlessly mocked, "Long Chen, your teeth are so strong. You even managed to crush a spirit stone. I admire you. It's not just my tongue that's strong. There's also my tongue. This move is called the Dragon Claw hand." Long Chen's hand reached out for Tang Wanner's chest, causing her to cry out. Meng Qi and Chu Yao immediately came to help, and the four of them began to roll around. The four of them chased each other back and forth across the leaf, filling the forest with their laughter. After chasing each other across hundreds of floating islands, they finally calmed down again. Meng Qi seriously said, "Long Chen, what are our chances in the upcoming battle?" Chu Yao and Tang Wanner's smiles also vanished, replaced by grave expressions. They were facing the dark forest and the martial heaven continent's experts. Of course they were worried. "Do you want the truth?" Long Chen sighed. "Of course," said Tang Wanner. "Then the truth is that I don't even have a 10% chance of beating the dark forest." "What are you saying?" Tang Wanner cried out. Long Chen smiled mischievously. "But although I have no confidence in beating them, I definitely won't lose." "What does that mean?" asked Tang Wanner. Long Chen saying that in the upcoming battle, we'll only be able to preserve the current state of the things. Neither side will come out with much of a victory, said Meng Qi, looking at Long Chen. Correct. The dark forest is too strong. Adding on the corrupt path, ancient races, and the ancient family alliances experts, our power is too low. However, I have my own trump card. As long as we can fight evenly against the martial heaven continent's experts, it'll be a win for us. So right now, I'm just praying that they launch their attack as late as possible. With each passing day, we and the forest of life are growing stronger. The life god tree is giving birth to tens of thousands of spirit generals each day, and the dragon blood warriors' mental realms have risen by a massive amount thanks to the life god tree's blessing. They can consume medicinal pills to increase their cultivation bases without worry. Guoran is also busy increasing the power of their armor and weapons. So the later the battle, the more favorable it will be to us, said Long Chen. Long Chen, we have to work hard. The spirit race is such a kind race. They shouldn't be destroyed from this world, said Chu Yao, with Meng Qi and Tang Wan'er nodding along. They had all fallen in love with the Forest of Life. Don't worry, the Forest of Life once bestowed me its favor. We will repay this favor, even if I have to sacrifice this life of mine. Long Chen patted his chest confidently. I knew you would be able to do this. Considering how evil you are, it's only natural, laughed Tang Wan'er, holding Long Chen's neck intimately. If you got rid of that last sentence, it would be more perfect. Long Chen glared at Tang Wan'er. Meng Qi and Chu Yao laughed at that expression. It felt like as long as Long Chen was present, he would be able to handle any problems. The four of them didn't cultivate. They simply calmly enjoyed the beauty of the Forest of Life during these days. They enjoyed this rare moment of relaxation. On the fourth day, news came from the front lines. The dark forest was moving out. A mass of experts was slowly approaching the Forest of Life. Shockingly, the entire dark forest had been mobilized this time. An endless mass of tree demons was coming towards the Forest of Life. A great battle was approaching. Black air surged out, turning the sky dark. This air was filled with slaughter and gloom. Is this the premonition of a world-shaking battle? Gu Yang looked at the black clouds. The entire world had turned dim now, and his voice was subdued. This kind of scene naturally felt ominous. The very air smelled of death, and it was oppressive. The Dragon Blood Legion had fully gathered now, standing in front of the Forest of Life. This was the final defensive line before the Forest of Life. All the other defensive lines had been abandoned because of Long Chen's orders. This final defensive line was like the gate to the Forest of Life. Once broken, their enemies would be able to swarm in. Despite being in such a large group, this air of death was still hard to bear. What premonition! This is the dark energy released by the dark forest. That darkness is a mass of tiny runes that will allow them to unleash their attacks more effectively. That dark energy is like water, while they are the fish. Without the water, their combat power would sharply drop. Have you forgotten that the entire dark forest is covered in that kind of air constantly? Guyang, I'm puzzled. How can someone with a bright head like yours be unable to understand something so simple? Long Chen looked at Guyang. That bald head that reflected the sun and moonlight was definitely bright. Guorand, Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, and the others all laughed. The laughter of the Dragon Blood warriors made Gu Yang's whole face turn red. Boss, you're the one with the brighter head, said Gu Yang. No, I rather like my long, flowing hair. In the Dragon Blood Legion, you're the one with the brightest head. Just having you is enough, joked Long Chen. Following Long Chen's joking, the pressure everyone felt lessened. They now felt like they had just been scaring themselves. When they had first entered the spirit world and dropped into the dark forest, they hadn't felt that the dark forest's air was so intense. This is the influence of the Forest of Life. It shrinks your guts. Long Chen solemnly looked at everyone, gravely saying, right now, the difference between the Dragon Blood warriors and the Dragon Mark warriors has grown negligible. At the very least, your power is about the same. But the Dragon Mark warriors are lacking a certain confidence and fearlessness in their souls. That is the only area where you are lacking compared to the Dragon Blood warriors. That showed itself during your last tribulation, and now it's showing itself in the face of the dark forest. The Dragon Blood warriors are still able to stay calm, but I can see the Dragon Mark warriors still feel a great deal of pressure. Boss, we'll work harder on tempering our wills, promised a Dragon Mark warrior. Long Chen waved his hand, shaking his head. It's not that your will isn't strong enough. The greatest difference is that you were born into too good of a family. The height that you were born into was different. The Dragon Blood warriors followed me from the eastern wasteland, encountering countless pitfalls and battles. We slaughtered our way out of those restrictions, forcing our way into our current height. We paid a great deal, but we also gained a great deal. As for the Dragon Mark warriors, you've also gone through many battles, all of them fierce and intense. You've long since tempered your wills to a good enough level. It's just that you still don't understand the meaning of battle. Why do we fight? Fighting isn't to kill, it's to protect. Fighting isn't to establish fame, but for your personal convictions. Only once you understand your convictions can you become fearless in the face of death. The reason your fear has appeared today is because of the effect of the forest of life. The forest of life? What is that supposed to mean? Asked Guoran. The others also didn't understand and looked at Long Chen for the answer. Long Chen solemnly said, "You've been affected by the forest of life's beliefs. They are a group of kind life forms, and they feel respect and gratitude toward all life. They don't hold grudges and they don't feel hatred. When our human race betrayed them, did they complain? Despite being betrayed by the human race, they still accept and trust us. This is their instinctual reaction. They are pure-hearted and good. They love life, they revere life, and they make life their conviction. When you received the Life God Tree's blessing, you were affected by that conviction. You've also started to feel respect for life and a thirst for life. This kind of conviction is their Tao, but it's not the Dragon Blood Legion's Tao. Our Tao is the weapons in our hands. The forest of life's creatures are kind, but that kindness can only be given to good people. If given to bad evil, they will take advantage of it and destroy them. For example, the forest of life was betrayed by the human race, and now they've fallen into their current straits. Is that fair? No. Everyone roared. Thinking of the human race's betrayal, they felt furious. They felt this was a disgrace of the entire human race. We don't have to feel guilty. That wasn't done by us, and the forest of life has never blamed us for it. But look at the martial heaven continent as a whole. How many good people really exist? If you put out your kind heart, what you will get in return is betrayal and the butcher's knife. So you have to have a kind heart, but you can't give it to just anyone. To love life isn't wrong. To be grateful for life isn't wrong. But we have to know to whom we should be grateful. To respect life isn't wrong. To the people who protected us, who bestowed us with our lives, we naturally have to feel gratitude and respect. But other than our parents and those elders, there's no one else worth our gratitude. If we want to protect our family in this bloody, chaotic world, then we have to bare our fangs. In the face of those evil people, we have to wield our butcher's knife without hesitation. The forest of life gave us its favor, and today, even if we have to fight to the last, we have to use our hot blood and lives to prove our conviction and oath. Why do we have to be afraid? Remember, what we cultivate is not the life Tao. We cultivate a killing Tao. Our world is full of disorder, and there's no way for us to discuss things reasonably. When convictions clash, the only thing that can protect us is our own butcher's blade. Long Chen's words resounded through their minds. It was like they were enlightened. Before coming here, they were unrivaled warriors who had dominated whatever battlefield they had fought on. They had long since grown indifferent to death. But after receiving the Life God Tree's blessing, they had truly been affected by it. The desire to fight had lessened, while their respect for life grew. However, Long Chen's words brought them all back to their initial state. In the martial heaven continent, only the strong could live with dignity. Only the strong could protect those close to them. They had understood that principle before. But after being affected by the Life God Tree, this principle had grown muddled. Now with Long Chen's reminder, they were ashamed. Remember, there is no one innocent on a battlefield. Anyone who raises their own butcher's blade to you is someone you have to kill. Perhaps those people are innocent and don't know the true story behind the scenes. Perhaps they were tricked and are being used, but those aren't reasons. As long as someone dares to raise their blade at us, no matter what reason they have to be killed mercilessly. A person has to pay the price for their own mistakes and foolishness, because their foolishness will only bring us endless pain. Once the battle starts, don't bother with what race they come from. They only have one identity. They are all enemies. Let me repeat it again. As long as there are enemies, they must be killed with our full power. We definitely can't have mercy, understand? Called out Long Chen. Understood. Everyone answered together. They knew that Long Chen was planning a real slaughter. Right now, the ancient races, the corrupt path, and the ancient family alliances experts were present. The corrupt path was the mortal enemy of the righteous path, so there was no need to worry about the Dragon Blood warriors being merciful to them. However, They might have some misgivings when it came to the ancient races and the ancient family alliance. After all, the relationship between them hadn't reached the point of either you die or I die. This made them a bit different from the corrupt path. If the Dragonblood Legion truly slaughtered them, those two powers would definitely become the enemies of the Xiantiandao sect. There was no way the Xiantiandao sect would be able to endure the attacks of those two powers. Long Chen was warning everyone because he was worried about those misgivings. On the battlefield, the people you faced were enemies. And enemies had to be killed without hesitation. Now, he was telling them that if they were unable to harden their hearts and kill their enemies, then the kind spirit race warriors behind them would be slaughtered. The spirit race warriors were powerful, but they did not walk the path of slaughter. Their killing power was limited. That was why Long Chen didn't place very high hopes on them. He placed the greatest burden on the Dragonblood Legion. They were warriors that had followed him for many years. With his reminder, they all returned to their battle state. The sky grew darker and darker. The world felt like it was turning completely black. But that brutal aura was no longer able to affect them. "Boss Gu Yen, please light up your head to show us our path in the darkness," joked a Dragonblood warrior. The Dragonblood Legion's warriors were all good brothers, and they all joked around with each other. It was very lively, and they didn't treat each other as superiors and inferiors. Long Chen was called boss, and now the other captains were called boss as well. However, they always added their name as well to differentiate them. For example, Boss Gu Yang, Boss Guoran. Only captain class members were qualified to be called boss. That included Gu Yang, Guoran, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan. Boom. Suddenly, the ground began to tremble. Powerful auras began to rise in the distance, slowly approaching. "They've finally come." Long Chen narrowed his eyes, staring into the distance. Long Chen stood at the front, facing the distance. A pitch-black wave was slowly coming over. This black wave seemed to be slowly devouring the world. It was a boundless sea of darkness. This black sea was composed of the dark forest tree demons. Hundreds of millions were approaching, and their berserk and vast auras were starting to rage through the air. Although the tree demons were still extremely far away, their killing intent had already reached the Dragonblood Legion. If it was before, then such an impact would multiply the pressure they were feeling. Even experts that had gone through 100 battles would have their hearts crumble. Due to Long Chen's speech before this, and their new comprehension of what the point of the battle was, none of the Dragonblood warriors were afraid. Not only that, but there was also that figure standing at the front of all of them. Although he wasn't huge, that figure gave them a boundless drive. He was their undefeatable god. As long as he was present, no matter how pessimistic the situation was, he would be able to lead them to victory. This was their unswerving belief. Long Chen stood at the front, his long hair and black robes billowing back. His staunch face was still completely calm, and his starry eyes possessed a reserved light. No one could tell what he was thinking. Chu Yao, Meng Qi, and Tang Wan'er had unconsciously held hands, staring at him with a soft and adoring expression. Everyone worshipped heroes, and when that hero was also their beloved, they felt an indescribable feeling of grandness. Normally, Long Chen liked to laugh and joke around without any propriety. But at important times, no one was more dependable than him. Even as the wave of darkness got closer, no one felt the slightest fear. The only thing welling up within them was battle intent. To fight alongside Long Chen was a supreme glory. This was the special charisma that Long Chen possessed. The darkness got closer, and the atmosphere began to become taut like a bow being drawn. The air grew heavier. Now that they were closer, the Dragonblood Legion could see experts from the human race at the front of the army of tree demons. What shocked Long Chen was that there were hundreds of thousands of human experts, and the corrupt path occupied the majority of that number. Behind the human experts was the army of tree demons. They were all giants, and their crowns covered the sky. From within the forest of tree demons came the roars of magical beasts. It was even possible to see some of their huge bodies between the tree demons. Long Chen, I didn't expect you to really have some guts. But your current actions are nothing more than a mantis trying to stop a carriage. You don't seem to know just how weak you are. A disdainful voice came from within the dark army. The voice wasn't particularly loud, and yet it rumbled through heaven and earth. It was like the world was resonating with his words, and that made the Dragon Blood warriors' hearts shake. They had never seen such a terrifying figure before. When that person spoke, they felt the energy of the world grow distant toward them. The speaker stood in the air, his eyes like golden lanterns, a pair of wings on his back. The world shook around him. He was the ancient race's Empyrean, Peng Wansheng. When he spotted Long Chen, killing intent blazed in his eyes. Even 3 slaps didn't fix your habit of shooting off your mouth. I must regretfully tell you that there's simply no cure for your illness. Chewing a stalk of grass, Long Chen spoke as if he felt sorry for Peng Wansheng's incurable disease. The Dragon Blood warriors' jaws dropped as low as possible, their eyes almost popping out. Although they didn't know who Peng Wansheng was, just the fact that several rank 9 celestials were standing deferentially behind him showed what kind of figure he was. Furthermore, they all felt a great heavenly Tao suppression from him. It felt like the heavenly Taos no longer cared about them, and all their energy was surging toward him. This was their first time seeing such a terrifying figure, but Long Chen said that he had slapped him 3 times? Long Chen, if I don't tear you to pieces today, I'll change my surname to yours, roared Peng Wansheng. No matter how I try, there's no way I could give birth to a birdman like you. Find someone else to be your father. Long Chen shook his head. Bastard. Peng Wansheng fully extended his wings, and golden runes revolved around him. All the heavenly Tao energy in the air raged. He was about to attack. Brother Peng, wait a moment. Don't be in such a rush. When eating and drinking, you have to do it slowly in order to savor it. The appetizers haven't even come, but you're rushing into the feast. That's boring. Sha Guangyan held Peng Wansheng back. Long Chen nodded at Sha Guangyan. Good, a slap in the face had a clear effect on your illness. You no longer start bragging as soon as you open your mouth. There's hope for you. Sha Guangyan's expression sank just like Peng Wansheng's had. His previous calm expression instantly became twisted with fury. Now not only were the Dragon Blood warriors shocked, even the people from the ancient races, the corrupt path, and the ancient family alliance were stunned. Such terrifying figures had both been slapped by Long Chen. Had they gone insane? Or was it the world that had gone insane? Only the people who had been there knew what had happened in the ancient battlefield. They naturally had to keep that secret, so no one knew about the face slapping. Unfortunately for them, Long Chen immediately brought it up here. Everyone felt that this was inconceivable. Just what kind of monster was capable of consecutively slapping the face of Empyreans? Boss is too low-key. He didn't even tell us such a thing, sighed Guoran. If it was him, he'd have announced the matter to the whole world. The Dragon Blood warriors stared at Long Chen's back, filled with worship. No matter what level of genius he was facing, they would still have to be slapped by their boss. He was unrivaled. Long Chen, let me tell you your smartest move. Hand over Evil Moon, and we'll immediately leave without making things hard on you. Otherwise, not only will all of you die, but the forest of life will also be destroyed, and once you're all dead, we'll slaughter every last member of your family. Can you still act so tough now? Sha Guangyan glared at Long Chen, not bothering to hide his killing intent. Bullshit, do you dare to touch a single hair of our families? Raged Guoran. This person was too arrogant. Not only did he say he would kill them all, but he even said he would kill their families. That was too much. Haha, do you think I'm just trying to scare you? You're mistaken. Once we leave the spirit world, we can annihilate all of your families, and not even the martial heaven continent would dare to say anything, laughed Sha Guangyan. Seeing their fury, he continued, do you still not know? The spirit world's forest of life is viewed as an enemy of the martial heaven continent. Back then, they betrayed the human race. When the Dark Era descended and the martial heaven continent was in danger of being destroyed, they chose to stand to the side and just watch, causing the martial heaven continent to descend into a dark era lasting tens of thousands of years. Countless human experts fell, And even the sovereign of that era died because of them. They are our enemies, and by standing with them, you become enemies with the entire Martial Heaven continent. Since you are the enemies, who would dare to say a thing about killing your families? What slander! It was the human race that betrayed the forest of life. You raged a dragon-blood warrior. Idiot, have you not opened a history book? Plenty of historical records clearly state that the forest of life is a bunch of lying, backstabbing traitors. They caused the Martial Heaven continent to fall into that long-lasting dark era and caused almost all life on the continent to die. It's all because of them, snorted Sha Guangyan. The Dragonblood warriors were infuriated and just about to burst into curses when Long Chen waved his hand. He indifferently said, "History is written by the winners, or can be changed according to the requirements of the strong. The true history has long since been lost in the river of time. Arguing about it doesn't have any meaning. I told you all that the current world is one of chaos and disorder. When there's no way to talk reasonably about things, when your convictions clash, the only thing you can do is kill. Sha Guangyan, I won't waste time arguing with you. If you want to play mental warfare, I'd advise you not to embarrass yourself with your little smarts. I owe the forest of life my life, and as long as I live, you won't be able to step half a foot into the forest of life. Furthermore, there's one thing I should say. I have a certain principle. Those who step onto a battlefield and raise their blades toward me are viewed as my enemies, and the people I recognize as enemies all die. Since we come from the same race, I'll say some awkward words, especially to the ancient family alliance's people. I'll give you one last chance to retreat from this battlefield, and then you'll still have a chance to keep living. But if you choose to fight, don't blame me when I cut off your heads." "Ha, how arrogant. Do you think we're children? You're the one who's going to die, yet you still dare to say such big words. How childish," sneered a person from the ancient family alliance. However, the Dragonblood Legion's people looked at them with pitiable expressions. This one sentence had sealed their fate. Boom. The void suddenly exploded, and a huge illusory image covered the sky. It was an image of a huge tree whose branches were like dragons spreading high into the sky. When the surrounding experts looked up, stars seemed to hang amongst its branches. Those were its fruit. This huge tree was completely black, and tiny scales were covering its body. Its leaves were in the shape of sharp blades. Black chi exuded from it. When it first appeared, the Dragonblood warriors almost thought it was the Life God tree. The Life God tree was the only other tree that they had ever seen that was this giant. Its huge branches completely covered the sky, and a berserk energy made their hearts shake. The fluctuations coming from this giant tree were horrifying. It was like it could annihilate everyone on this battlefield with just a thought. Most shocking of all was that this giant tree was nothing more than a projection. It wasn't its true body, and yet it still possessed such pressure. "Life Master, I'll give you a chance. As long as you choose not to participate in this battle of the human race, my dark forest will not attack the forest of life." A black figure condensed in front of the tree. That figure seemed to be made out of mist, and it was impossible to see its face. But the voice came from it. The sky once more shook, and a divine light began to force back the black tree. Another giant tree appeared in the sky, dispelling the darkness. Life energy began to flow through the air. The pressure on the Dragonblood warriors vanished. The Life God tree. The Dragonblood warriors were delighted. As long as the Life God tree could block that tree's pressure, they could still fight to their fullest abilities. Although it was also just a projection, their power seemed to be equal. That gave the Dragonblood warriors confidence. You recovered? Impossible." The black projection's voice was full of shock. A figure also slowly condensed in front of the Life God tree. It was the Spirit Emperor. "You don't need to try discussing any conditions. The Forest of Life will fight to the death alongside Long Chen." "So your life energy recovered. But if you think you can block my army, you're too arrogant. Since that's the case, today we'll annihilate your Forest of Life. Starting today, the Dark Forest alone will govern the spirit world." The black projection snorted. The giant tree exploded, and black rain fell amongst the sea of tree demons. The tree demons began to crazily grow. All their auras grew and became more berserk. Kill! Countless tree demons began to charge over at the Dragonblood Legion. Their bodies were so huge that humans looked like ants in front of them. The ancient race, corrupt path, and ancient family alliances experts stood in their original locations. They eagerly anticipated Long Chen and the others' upcoming miserable plight. "Boss, now what? We're not woodcutters," cried out Guoran. He had never experienced a fight against tree demons, so he didn't know how to fight them. "These tree demons are nothing to me. Watch me exterminate them with a wave of my hand." Long Chen laughed and began to rise through the air. When Long Chen spread his arms, soil suddenly appeared all around him. "Idiot, you want to use earth energy to handle tree demons? Is there anyone more stupid than you?" sneered Peng Wanxing. Sha Guangyan was also startled that Long Chen would be summoning earth to handle tree demons. Wasn't it simply obvious that earth birthed wood? It was like he was trying to drown a fish with water. Endless wind waves. Tang Wan'er, who had long since been prepared, directly summoned her 9-flower manifestation. A hurricane was summoned, and waves of wind came from it, dispersing Long Chen's black soil toward the tree demon army. "What? This soil is toxic. My body, it's withering." The sky full of black soil surged forward. The human experts didn't sense anything from it, but the tree demons let out horrified cries. When a single speck of the black soil touched their bodies, their life energy would rapidly vanish, and their bodies would wither. The first tree demon withered in an instant, collapsing to the ground. Then its withered body disintegrated until it was just a speck of dust. "Retreat!" The tree demons cried out panically and ran for their lives. But it was too late. Under Tang Wan'er's powerful wind, the black soil covered the sky. The dark forest tree demons were easily caught. This was the black soil from Long Chen's primal chaos space which devoured all life. It was toxic to vegetation. No matter how strong the tree demon was, they would completely wither in just a few breaths' time. The tree demons fell one by one, turning into specks of dust. This scene stunned everyone. These tree demons were comparable to Life Star experts. But they were instantly killed. "Life Master, stop. We can still discuss this matter." The Dark Forest's experts suddenly roared. "Sorry, my Forest of Life is listening to Long Chen's orders. Asking me is useless," said the Spirit Emperor. The Spirit Emperor was also shocked. She had never heard of such a powerful soil of death in this world. It caused her to also feel fear. No wonder Long Chen had been so confident before this battle. This black soil was absolutely dreadful. To the Forest of Life's creatures, this soil was even more deadly. Fortunately, it was flying toward the dark forest. If it flew backward instead, the Forest of Life would be doomed. Now she also knew why Long Chen hadn't let them approach the battlefield and were told to just hold their position. "Fuck, what are you still standing around for? Kill that bastard," roared the Dark Forest's expert. Roaring rang out and the ground trembled as countless magical beasts charged over at Long Chen. These magical beasts were all huge and powerful, and the majority of them were 11th rank magical beasts. This mass of magical beasts was also terrifying. Long Chen waved his hand, and a mountain of the black soil appeared. Long Chen had no time to release it bit by bit for Tang Wan'er, so he just dropped a mountain of it off for Tang Wan'er to spread. They had to annihilate as many tree demons as they could right now to frighten them from ever coming back. Tang Wan'er summoned a huge sphere of wind blades. It smashed into the black mountain, and the black soil shot out. Because there were so many tree demons, and they covered such a huge area, it was impossible for them to fully retreat in time. Their giant bodies were easy targets. Even as they fled, Tang Wan'er sent her wind blades after them, using the black soil to touch their bodies. Just the slightest bit represented death for them. Magical beasts of the dark forest, hurry up and come. Your daddy Guoran's latest invention has long since gotten thirsty of blood. Guoran had already flown into the air. The huge cannon on his shoulder pointed at the army of magical beasts. Boom! A huge cannonball shot out. It was only a foot long when it came out, but it rapidly grew. When it landed amongst the magical beasts, it had already grown to 300 meters. It was a giant bomb. Guoran had placed spatial runes on it to shrink the cannonball. That way, he didn't need a giant cannon. Boom. It was like a beautiful firework had gone off in the army of magical beasts. Fiery red blades flew out in every direction. Those blades were inscribed with golden runes, and with the power of the explosion behind them, not even 11th rank magical beasts were able to block them. Even with their tough hide, the flying blades cut through their flesh. If they didn't strike bone, they would continue all the way through their bodies. There were too many blades, and the targets were too concentrated. Many magical beasts had their heads pierced and their crystal cores shattered. They were slain just like that. Come. Your daddy Guor is still hungry. Guoran's mighty attack shook everyone. Even Long Chen was experiencing the power of Guoran's latest invention for the first time. It seemed that this fellow was finally learning about how to be low-key, at least in order to show off with greater effect. This one attack was absolutely stunning. At the very least, even Long Chen was stunned by it. Most shocking of all, Guoran shot out 6 cannonballs in total, aiming them at the most concentrated locations of the magical beasts. They were slain in massive numbers. Boss Guoran is mighty. The Dragon Blood warriors cheered. This opening from Guoran was beautiful. Someone, go kill him, ordered Sha Guangyan with a dark expression. He turned to a rank 9 celestial beside him. The rank 9 celestial nodded and vanished. At this time, Guoran was freely shooting more bombs, relishing in the feeling of having all eyes on him. Long Chen's mouth curled into a smile upon seeing Guoran show off. Guoran's greatest goal in life was to show off in front of others. He was walking further and further along this unending path. When the rank 9 celestial vanished, Long Chen frowned and slowly raised a finger. But after a moment of hesitation, he lowered his hand again. A figure appeared behind Guoran like a ghost, slashing at Guoran's neck. That figure appeared so suddenly that no one could react. His sword was already slashing at Guoran's neck. It was coming from a dead angle, and even if Guoran wasn't busy shooting out cannonballs with his large and clumsy cannon, he wouldn't be able to dodge. The Dragon Blood warriors let out startled cries, but that person was so fast, there was nothing they could do. The sword landed right on Guoran's neck. But the devastating sight of his head flying didn't appear. Instead, sparks flew, and people realized that Guoran's neck had suddenly become covered in golden armor. Guoran's neck was fine, while that person's sword bounced off. Idiot, did you think you could sneak attack your daddy? It seems you've never died before. Guoran laughed. Without even turning back, the cannon on his shoulder suddenly opened on the other side, and a golden flower blossomed. A red light shot out of the center of the flower at his sneak attacker. The sneak attacker hadn't summoned his manifestation in order to sneak up on Guoran. To be fair, no one had thought Guoran's cannon would be able to fire backward as well. A shameless design like this was probably something only Guoran could think of. The cannon's power was immense, but if a sudden sneak attack was launched from behind him, it would be hard for Guoran to face his attacker. So he had come up with this sinister trick. The sneak attacker's hair stood on end when that red light appeared. He hastily brandished his sword, about to summon his manifestation. However, just as he was about to summon his manifestation, his whole body trembled, and an expression of absolute terror appeared on his face. He stiffened. Boom! The red light pierced through his body, and he blew up like a watermelon, filling the air with his blood. He killed a rank 9 celestial in one blow? Impossible! The ancient races, corrupt path, and ancient family alliances experts were all stunned. That was a rank 9 celestial. He had been killed in one blow. Seeing Guoran actually kill a rank 9 celestial in one blow, Long Chen couldn't help but feel a bit angry inside. His power was clearly enough to suppress rank 9 celestials, but killing them was always extremely difficult. The slightest carelessness and they would get away. As for Guoran's little trick, he had been secretly helped by Meng Qi. That rank 9 celestial had been killed before understanding what was going on. It had been too simple. Ha! A pitiful rank 9 celestial dares to embarrass himself in front of me? Your daddy Guaran swept through this world, looking down on heaven and earth. You little pieces of crap are only fit to crawl before me. Guaran laughed excitedly, feeling incredibly satisfied. Long Chen glanced at Meng Qi and saw her smiling. She didn't say anything, and no one else was capable of sensing what she had done. He knew that Meng Qi was an extremely powerful existence now. After he had given the 3-head 9-eye illusion spirit beast's skeleton to her, she had told him that she would give him a nice surprise. Now he saw Meng Qi silently assist Guaran, without forming a hand seal or even moving, to kill a rank 9 celestial. It could be seen how terrifying Meng Qi was now. The 3-head 9-eye illusion spirit beast's skeleton was clearly extremely beneficial to her. However, Guaran's follow-up bragging was a bit embarrassing. His skin was too thick. Although it was true that he had killed a rank 9 celestial in one blow, if it hadn't been for Meng Qi's secret assistance, it was an unknown whether or not he could have even injured that dead celestial. Only Guaran, Meng Qi, and Long Chen knew about that. The others had no idea, and they all stared in shock at Guaran. Using my cannon to kill you weaklings would be bullying. Today, I'll let you see what a true unrivaled hero is. I won't even use my cannon, and I'll still kill you like slaughtering chickens. Cackled Guaran as he put away his cannon. Long Chen naturally knew that this was an act. Having used up his cannonballs, Guaran still didn't forget to brag. But the opposition was still stunned by him and was unable to determine if his words were true or not. Black specks of soil had covered this world. Under Tang Wanner's efforts, it was unknown just how many tree demons had been slain, transforming into specks of dust. It was even more effective than I expected. Long Chen was delighted inside. The primal chaos space's black soil was too mysterious. This could count as divine power. It was impossible to calculate how many tree demons had fallen to the black soil just now. But he guessed that at least half of the tree demons were now specks of dust on the battlefield. Spirit Emperor, have your people fall back further so they don't touch the black soil. That thing doesn't differentiate between friend or foe. Long Chen transmitted his orders to the Spirit Emperor. He didn't need to actually speak to the Spirit Emperor. He could simply use the green leaf image on his hand to transmit his thoughts throughout the Forest of Life. From the start, he had chosen a spot very far from the Forest of Life to fight. But the black soil was even more terrifying than he had imagined, so to be safe, he had them retreat even further. At this moment, the sea of beasts crashed upon them. Guaran had killed many of them, but there were just too many of the beasts. The amount Guaran had killed was nothing compared to this army of magical beasts. Brothers, raise your weapons. Kill all the threats in front of you. Don't let them touch the Forest of Life. This is a battle to protect, and even if we have to die, we won't retreat half a step. Kill! Shouted Long Chen, floating above the battlefield. Kill! 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 The Dragonblood warriors roared, their voices growing louder wave by wave until they drowned out the magical beasts. Over 13,000 warriors took out their weapons and summoned their heavenly Tao manifestations. They charged at the army of magical beasts. Boom! Guaran was the first to fly toward them. He charged at a golden bull as large as a mountain and covered in scales. It was exceptionally fierce, but Guaran simply pointed a finger, and a golden light flew out. A hole appeared in the golden bull's head, and it tumbled back into the distance before lying motionless, dead. Brothers, kill with me. Dragonblood Legion, use the blood of these brutes to testify to our undefeatable oath. Standing atop the golden bull's corpse, Guaran raised his hand and roared. In all honesty, he truly did have the air of an undefeatable leader at this time. Kill! The Dragonblood warriors charged, filling the air with the blood of magical beasts. The scent of blood reeked strongly, but it stimulated the Dragonblood warriors' killing intent. Rays of light flashed. The Dragonblood warriors emitted cold rays of sword chi that cut through the tough hides of the magical beasts. Even the 11th rank magical beasts were no exception. Runes flowed around the Dragon Blood warriors' swords. Their sword chi was thin and long, cutting through the bodies of the magical beasts like cutting through tofu. Their bodies were easily cut into pieces. How can they have such terrifying weapons? Seeing this, the ancient race, corrupt path, and ancient family alliances experts were stunned. That power has surpassed the limit of king items. Although their auras aren't on the level of ancestral items, their killing power is almost on that level. Most importantly, their swords are practically identical. Could it be they made them themselves? Startled cries rang out as they watched the Dragon Blood warriors charge through the sea of magical beasts. The experts with the most experience could easily see the details of the Dragon Blood warriors' weapons. Although they didn't have the might of ancestral items, their material was definitely on that level. The runes carved into them were extremely profound and allowed them to unleash sword chi of an exceptionally sharp nature. Even 11th rank magical beasts found their defenses turned to mud in front of their attacks. Should we attack? We can kill them and take their weapons, proposed someone greedily. Over 13,000 warriors with such divine weapons. That was naturally enticing. Those weapons were all forged by Guaran. They were his blood, sweat, and tears. The runes carved on them came from the ethereal crafting secret record. He had added a rune he had recently comprehended which imbued them with a sharp nature. The material was of the ancestral item level, while the runes were amazing as well. The only reason they didn't possess the might of ancestral items was because they didn't have item spirits. So, although they couldn't count as ancestral items, they made these people greedy. There's no need. The tree demons are restricted by that strange soil and can't participate in the battle. But don't look down on the dark forest. The magical beasts alone are enough to wipe them out. The magical beasts we see here are nothing more than a small portion of all the magical beasts in the dark forest. It's just that the dark forest didn't expect to encounter the black soil. Now that the tree demons have retreated, they'll be sending out more and more magical beasts. That's enough to crush them. There's no need for us to participate. When they're exhausted, we'll give them the fatal blow. Sha Guangyan had a cold smile as he watched the Dragon Blood warriors fight. When they looked at Long Chun floating in the air, Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing both had sinister smiles on their faces. The Dragon Blood warriors' swords danced. Over 13,000 of them had formed a giant human wall that blocked the charge of the magical beasts. Guaran was at the very front, wearing his golden armor that shone brightly and drew everyone's attention. He was a metal machine, wielding a special saber in his hand that killed a magical beast with each attack. Even 11th rank magical beasts weren't able to endure his power. Guaran wasn't strong himself, but through his armor, his power multiplied hundreds of times. Even Long Chen had become envious of that. He had asked about making such armor for himself, but the control mechanism for Guaran's armor was too complicated. As soon as he saw the principles involved, he gave up on that idea. It wasn't just Long Chen. In the Dragon Blood Legion, there were quite a few people who asked for some simple mechanisms from Guaran, but they all abandoned the idea in the end. Even just a mechanism to increase the power of their arms was difficult to control. On a battlefield, there was no way for them to fight freely with such a thing. If one arm was too difficult to control, then there was even less to say about a full set of armor. That would be even more difficult than ascending the heavens. Guaran hadn't wanted to keep his armor to himself. In fact, he hoped to create similar armor for the entire Dragon Blood Legion. Then they could dominate these lands. Unfortunately, not everyone had his kind of unique talent. They were unable to manipulate the subtle mechanisms effortlessly like he was. This dream was shattered. With a slash of Guaran's saber, a black-striped tiger was cut in two, and a long scar was cut in the ground. Guaran raised his head and roared, except it sounded a bit more like a wolf howl. "Come, your daddy Guaran's blade is still thirsty." His voice was amplified by his armor and contained a metallic ringing to it. It was exceptionally bold, and adding on his terrifying combat power, it caused his enemies' hearts to shake. The current Guaran looked like a merciless slaughter machine. He was constantly reaping the lives of these magical beasts. A giant snake opened its mouth and shot a violet ray at Guoran. A huge explosion rocked the world when it struck Guoran, but when the dust settled, Guoran was fine. He simply slashed his blade once more, killing another 11th-ranked magical beast. "Who is that? How is he so terrifying?" cried out someone from the ancient races. They were aware that Long Chen's combat power was terrifying, but they hadn't heard of other figures on this level as well. In front of Guoran, those powerful magical beasts were all cut down, their blood dyeing the ground scarlet. He just relies on his armor. Without his armor, he'd be a snail without a shell, and anyone could easily crush him, said someone irritably. Each time Guoran attacked, the runes on his armor would light up. Based on that, it wasn't difficult to determine that Guoran's power depended on his armor. But more shocking was that it wasn't just Guoran. Gu Yang, Li Qi, and Song Mingyuan were also incredibly powerful. The magical beasts were also killed in one blow by them. They're just relying on the sharpness of their weapons. They can't last long like this. They'll still definitely die, sneered someone. They were standing in the distant sky and could see the entire battlefield clearly. In truth, the Dark Forest had only brought out half their tree demons and less than a tenth of their magical beasts. The Dark Forest didn't even view the Forest of Life as an opponent. They were just prey and a bargaining chip for their cooperation with the Martial Heaven continent. Their only goal had been to force the Forest of Life to hand over Long Chen. They didn't want to destroy the Forest of Life. If that happened, their bargaining chip would vanish. They wouldn't do something so stupid as to kill the goose that laid the golden eggs. So their main goal had just been intimidation this time. And to intimidate them, they didn't even need to bring out all their troops. However, they hadn't expected their powerful tree demons to run into their bane. Over half the army they had brought had been killed. They could only send out their magical beast army. To prove their worth to the powers of the Martial Heaven continent that they were trying to work with, the Dark Forest would definitely send their other magical beasts over. It was because Sha Guangyan and Peng Wanxing had long since seen through that they were just watching for now. Long Chen, this isn't favorable to us. Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan are our greatest threats, said Chu Yao, who stood beside Long Chen. Clearly, Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan were ordering their side to just watch and wait for when the Dragon Blood Legion was exhausted to launch a fatal blow. Having such a threat just standing by was worrisome. I know, but it's fine. All schemes are useless in front of absolute power. Long Chen smiled calmly and slowly raised his hand. Runes began to fall from his hand, transforming into runic chains that fell to the battlefield. All the experts watching had their hearts shake when they saw Long Chen make a move. They all looked toward him. They're done for already? How boring, sneered Peng Wanxing. For Long Chen to make a move meant the Dragon Blood Legion had to already be having trouble. But right now, it was still just the start. As the leader of the Dragon Blood Legion, he was supposed to lead his troops. To have to join the fight so early, it only proved their defeat was set in stone. Originally, Peng Wanxing and Sha Guangyan had been expecting Long Chen to only take action when the Dragon Blood Legion was getting tired. That would be their best time to attack as well. They would then teach him what despair was. What is he doing? Suddenly, people realized that Long Chen wasn't taking action against the magical beasts. Instead, his runic chains fell toward the magical beast corpses on the ground. Wherever the runic chains went, those huge corpses vanished. Clearly, they were taken away by Long Chen. What an idiot! Even with death at hand, he's greedy for their crystal cores, sneered Peng Wanxing. Hundreds of runic chains flew from Long Chen's body, spreading out and gathering the corpses throughout the battlefield. Long Chenyu? Probed Tang Wan. Why would he be cleaning up the battlefield at this time? You shouldn't waste a single piece of grain. In a bit, things will become too chaotic to take them. Long Chen smiled and didn't explain much. Right now, he urgently needed the flesh of magical beasts. If he didn't quickly gather the corpses, then the battle would cause their bodies to explode and become more difficult to gather. So this was actually the best time. His runic chains were like his own hands. Whatever he touched could be drawn into the primal chaos space. Those corpses were all tossed into the black soil in the primal chaos space. This was his first time since advancing to the Jade Core realm to go all out absorbing magical beast corpses. The black soil was like a sea, and the magical beast corpses slowly sank within it. Life energy began to fill the primal chaos space. The world trees were growing extremely slowly. Even now, they were only 30 meters tall. They were still in the form of soft shoots. They couldn't even count as saplings. However, as piles of magical beast corpses landed on the black soil, life energy spread throughout the primal chaos space, and the world trees finally began to grow at a visible rate. They quickly reached a height of 300 meters. For normal large trees, this was already a fully grown state. Yet, the world trees were still in the form of soft shoots. Their bodies were still not fully opaque. However, now a third leaf finally sprouted. Long Chen couldn't help being shocked. These world trees were truly shocking. They required a huge amount of life energy to grow. Finally, when they reached a height of 1,000 meters, the first branches began to grow out of them, and they took on the form of saplings. That delighted Long Chen. He was waiting just for this moment. He began carefully snapping off those branches and planting them as well. The primal chaos space didn't disappoint him. Those branches also began to take root and grow as the life energy nourished them. Thus, primal chaos bead, you are really amazing. Long Chen gathered corpses as he planted more branches. This time, he left many miles between each world tree. By the time the world trees were fully grown, they would be hundreds of miles tall, and being too concentrated would affect their growth. Long Chen was hard at work. The first batch of the world trees was already at 1,500 meters, and more branches were growing. He was crazily transplanting them. Fortunately, everything in the primal chaos space was controlled by his spiritual strength. His spiritual strength was spread throughout it, and he was constantly snapping off branches to plant them. In just a short couple hours, the primal chaos space was filled with the world trees. However, these world trees were all in different stages of growth. There were clear differences between the first ones and the later ones. Furthermore, as he planted more, their growth slowed down as well. The first batch of world trees that had reached 1,800 meters were no longer growing at a visible rate. However, the shocking thing was that just that batch of world trees had as much life energy as thousands of fully matured iron spruce oaks. It had to be known that these world trees were still in a very young state. They were only slightly larger saplings, but they possessed this much life energy. This was a nice surprise for Long Chen. Just as he was relishing in this happiness, rumbling rang out. A black mass of figures filled the distant sky. The sky in the distance turned black as giant flying figures began rushing over. Those are spotted ghost mosquitoes. Hee, now the Dragon Blood Legion's doomed, laughed a corrupt expert. The black wave in the sky was a mass of black mosquitoes with white spots. Their individual bodies were 30 meters long. There was no way to estimate their numbers as they filled the entire sky. The spotted ghost mosquitoes were an extremely fierce kind of magical beasts. Their mouthparts were exceptionally sharp and could easily pierce the defenses of other magical beasts. Even armored magical beasts were no exception. Worst of all was the poison on their mouthparts. If struck, a person would be instantly paralyzed. Then the spotted ghost mosquitoes would suck out every last drop of their blood. In the dark forest, they were masters of their own region. They had been developing for many years, and their numbers were horrific. Other magical beasts didn't dare to provoke them. A buzzing filled the air as they flew toward the Dragon Blood Legion. But as they pounced, wooden arrows glowing with emerald light shot through their midst. The spirit race warriors were finally attacking. These were Long Chen's orders. Down below, the Dragon Blood warriors were already having trouble facing the magical beasts. After all, their bodies were too huge, and the Dragon Blood warriors were forced to run back and forth to protect their defensive line. That was why they needed the spirit race warriors to protect the air above them. After all, they were long-range attackers. Millions of spirit race warriors were launching wooden arrows. The rain of arrows caused the spotted ghost mosquitoes to fall from the sky. Although they had terrifying offensive power, and their numbers were also horrifying, their fatal weakness was their low defensive strength. The spirit race warriors could bring down a dozen of them with one arrow. They were quickly shot down. Although they were magical beasts, they were still of insect types, and they didn't have crystal cores. One of them fell right beside Guaran. Its long mouthpiece easily stabbed through a tough stone like it was tofu. Damn, it's this powerful? Guaran smacked his lips. Their mouthpieces were even sharper than the average king item. Meng-Chi, you should take the mouth parts and brand them with your spiritual C. These are powerful killing tools, Long Chen secretly transmitted to Meng-Chi. Meng-Chi nodded. Her spiritual strength spread stealthily into the ground, and their mouthpieces were silently brought into her spiritual space. Each mouthpart was several meters long, incredibly sharp, and contained powerful poison. Just as Long Chen said, they were powerful killing tools. Best of all, the battlefield was completely chaotic. All Meng-Chi had to do was silently spread her spiritual strength, and no one would sense it. The spirit race warriors were continuously shooting. Their movements were very practiced and beautiful, and they could shoot out several arrows in the blink of an eye. Each time they shot an arrow, a small mark would light up on their foreheads. Their wooden arrows were filled with a strange energy. Even though they were wooden arrows, they were even stronger than steel arrows. That should be a kind of faith energy. They give their everything to the life god tree, and the life god tree gives its own energy to them. Long Chen felt a bit envious as he watched them. A healthy faith could give a person great power. They would be able to fight fearlessly and without worry of a heart devil. The spirit race warriors were the most beautiful life forms. They were kind, pure, and refined. The dragon blood warriors hadn't been with them for long, but they had already fallen in love with the forest of life and all its life forms. Even without Long Chen's orders, they would be willing to protect them. Even if they had to sacrifice their lives, they wouldn't hesitate. In truth, the forest of life's creatures had also become a kind of conviction for the dragon blood warriors. Protecting the forest of life was protecting the pure and kind side of their hearts. If the forest of life was really exterminated in front of them, if the beautiful spirit race warriors were mercilessly slaughtered, they would go crazy. That was something they refused to see happen. Now the dragon blood warriors were working together with the spirit race warriors. The spirit race warriors were in charge of the air, while the dragon blood warriors were in charge of the ground. Both in charge of their individual areas, they managed to hold back the dark forest's army of magical beasts. How are they so strong? Raged an ancient race expert. 6 hours had passed, and the dragon blood warriors didn't show any sign of fatigue. Instead, their auras were still blazing with power as they fought. The battlefield was still the same. The mountain of corpses that should have piled up had been cleanly taken away by Long Chen. The only change was that now the ground was running with rivers of blood. What is Long Chen doing? Why is he cleaning up the battlefield? None of the experts on the other side could understand what he was thinking. Long Chen was just floating at the center of the battlefield. He didn't go kill magical beasts, nor did he direct his people's attacks. Instead, he just silently cleaned up the battlefield. Although the corpses of 11th rank magical beasts were valuable, especially their crystal cores, who would actually have the heart to gather those things with death at hand? No matter how precious something was, didn't he think his life was more precious? They had no idea that Long Chen was silently rejoicing. More and more magical beast corpses were being tossed into the primal chaos space's black soil. The black soil was like a bottomless mouth, constantly devouring the corpses to unleash endless life energy for the world trees. After this many hours, even the final batch of world trees had reached a height of 600 meters. The barren primal chaos space was finally filled with greenery. It was thriving with vitality. But as the sprouts grew, their growth slowed down. They needed more and more life energy to grow. Now there were hundreds of thousands of world trees absorbing energy at the same time. Their growth looked very slow. Yet, the slower they grew, the happier Long Chen was. That signified that the world tree's life energy was even greater. Once they were all fully grown, he would possess an undying body. More and more spotted ghost mosquitoes arrived, but the spirit race warriors were still strong enough to handle them. Their arrows never stopped. Even after this long, their tempo didn't fall. The spotted ghost mosquitoes were constantly slain, and Meng Qi silently gathered their mouthparts while Long Chen gathered the corpses of all the magical beasts. Thanks to the two of them, the battlefield was very clear. "Watch out below!" Long Chen suddenly shouted. Just after he shouted, the ground below the battlefield exploded, and a large mouth devoured over 10 of the dragon blood warriors. The mouth belonged to a black centipede. Its body was glossy, giving off a metallic luster. Its head was as large as a mountain. Boom! The black centipede's head suddenly exploded as over 10 rays of sword chi shot into the air. It was killed. The ground began to erupt in more and more places as giant centipedes launched a sudden attack. This time, they didn't devour anyone. Instead, they spat out a black mist, which was pitch black and spread rapidly. "The mist is poisonous," cried out the dragon blood warriors. They immediately held their breath and fell back. However, some of the black mist still reached them. As soon as it touched their skin, they felt like they were being hit by a branding iron. Their skin instantly corroded. Now the Dragon Blood Legion is doomed. The distant experts all smiled delightedly. Some people were already stealthily approaching the battlefield, ready to snatch the Dragon Blood warriors' weapons. These people had been waiting to get the weapons for a long time now. The huge centipedes were an ancient species. They were called golden tail underground centipedes. Although their bodies were huge, they had a strange ability that allowed them to move underground like fish in water. Their auras would be concealed to make them ideal for sneak attacks. These golden tail underground centipedes had 11 stripes on their heads. That was a specific mark, with each stripe representing a rank. In other words, these were all 11th rank magical beasts. Their poison mist could kill life star experts. That was why these experts immediately felt that the Dragon Blood Legion was doomed, and that this was the best moment to take advantage of them. "Everyone retreat!" Long Chen cried out. Although the golden tail underground centipede's arrival was a bit sudden, he wasn't panicked. Even if there was poison, it wouldn't be a problem. That was because each of them had the blessing of the spirit trees. As soon as the poison reached them, a green leaf image would appear on their foreheads. Life energy would fill them, expelling the poison. Although there was no danger to their lives, there was still a time lag between being poisoned and expelling the poison. That would gravely affect their combat strength. After sending out the order to retreat, Tang Wanner didn't need a reminder from Long Chen. She formed hand seals, summoning a wild tempest that blew the poison mist toward the experts that had just crept closer to the battlefield to take advantage. A wild wind wrapped around the black mist, turning it into a black mist cyclone that shot toward the distant experts. Tang Wanner's winds were quick, and they reached the enemies in an instant, not giving them any time to react. Quite a few people were devoured by the black mist. The black mist was sticky, and a person's body would dissolve on contact. The weaker ones were instantly turned into white skeletons, before their bones also turned black. In just a breath's time, they were completely dissolved. Even soul transformation experts couldn't escape with their Yuan spirits. Only rank 7 celestials and above were barely able to endure the poison by summoning their heavenly Tao manifestations. But they still withered, and their skin dissolved away, exposing their flesh and blood. As for those below rank 7 celestials, even soul transformation experts were unable to endure. They were all killed by the black mist. The rank 7 celestials and above who managed to survive thanks to their heavenly Tao manifestations immediately fled for their lives. They hadn't expected Long Chen to dare to attack them. Tens of thousands of experts flew into a panic. The majority of the experts that had crept forward died in the mist. "Bastards of the Shentian Dao sect, just wait. If we don't kill you all today, I'll swear I'm not human," roared an ancient family expert. His face no longer had a shred of skin on it. It was a mass of flesh and blood. He was a powerful rank 8 celestial, but he had still been turned into his current state. His heavenly Tao energy was in the midst of expelling the poison from his body. However, the poison was very difficult to deal with. It felt like it had taken root in his body and was trying to tear him apart inch by inch. Even his soul was in immense pain. This was definitely a kind of torture. Idiot, if you have any guts, then just come. Does shouting over there have any meaning? Scoffed Long Chen. Since they were standing on the battlefield, they were already enemies. Shouting obscenities at the other side was meaningless. Tang Wanner's wind continued to blow through the enemies. They had to hastily retreat and flee like bunnies. Eventually, they went too far, and her wind energy weakened, allowing them to escape. Ignore them. Send the mist to attack the magical beasts, said Long Chen to Tang Wanner. Long Chen was smiling brightly inside. The dark forest truly did have wooden brains. They didn't even know how to properly plan out battles or what the proper order should be. As Tang Wanner's wind returned, the black mist began blowing through the magical beasts. The magical beasts also let out mournful wails as smoke began coming from their bodies. Only a few armored magical beasts were able to resist the mist and continue attacking the Dragon Blood Legion. Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, trap the centipedes. But don't attack them. Spirit race warriors, shoot the furred magical beasts, shouted Long Chen. Thanks to the poison mist, the spotted ghost mosquitoes were falling from the sky. They were the first to die from the poison. The dark forest is so stupid. Aren't they just helping Long Chen now? Cursed Peng Wanxing. There's no way around it. Those idiots all have wooden brains, and they don't know how to think. Furthermore, they're so stubborn that they won't listen to anyone else. It doesn't matter. Even if they die, they aren't really our people, said Sha Guangyan indifferently. He had long since heard of the dark forest's stupidity. But today, he supposed he was experiencing what peak stupidity was. In the end, the black mist annihilated the spotted ghost mosquitoes. Only a small portion of them actually died to the spirit race warriors. The rest all died to the poison, as the poison mist was their bane. The furred magical beasts were also weak to the mist. Thanks to the poison's corrosion, their defenses sharply dropped. For the spirit race warriors, shooting through their tough hides was very difficult. But that tough defense had become as weak as paper now, and their arrows rained down on them. Their arrows were very accurate, and each one aimed for vitals. The magical beasts collapsed one by one. As for the golden tail underground centipedes, they were constantly popping out from the ground, attacking the Dragon Blood warriors. The Dragon Blood warriors retreated repeatedly. Li Qi and Song Mingyuan both summoned their heavenly Tao manifestations, and 9 flowers revolved around each of them. They slammed their hands on the ground. Great earthen wall. A huge wall rose from the earth. It was many miles thick and tall, and it spread through the battlefield. Countless runes floated across the wall. Thanks to the runes, the earthen wall actually gave off a metallic luster. A heavy aura came from it that made it seem like an invincible city wall. Long Chen smiled. After becoming rank 9 celestials, Li Qi and Song Mingyuan's earth energy had grown even pure. This wall's defensive power was startling. Countless golden tail underground centipedes came crashing out of the ground. This wall didn't just seal the sky, it also sealed the ground beneath it. They were unable to pass. More and more of the centipedes were popping out, crazily attacking the wall. However, this wall was the result of both Li Qi and Song Mingyuan pouring in all their strength. It was incomparably tough. No matter how the countless golden tail underground centipedes attacked, they were unable to break through it. At most, they would cause a few cracks, but those would quickly recover. They tried to climb the walls, but as a result, the wall's runes shook them off. No matter what they tried, they were unable to get by. They were so infuriated that they began to spit out more black mist. They're so useless. The dark forest is filled with idiots. Cursed an ancient race expert. Unable to get past the earthen wall, the golden tail underground centipedes began crazily spitting out poison mist. Tang Wanner was sending the mist to the attacking magical beasts. As a result, Those magical beasts had their defenses sharply drop and were easily picked off by the spirit race warriors' arrows. As for the defensively powerful armored magical beasts, Guaran would target them with a giant crossbow. Although the armored magical beasts didn't fear the poison, Guaran's explosive arrows were much more terrifying. He aimed for their weakest spots, and once his arrows pierced their bodies, they would explode. Guaran only targeted the armored magical beasts. He didn't want to waste his exploding arrows on the other magical beasts. He left them to the spirit race warriors. As a result, the battlefield became very strange. The Dragonblood warriors were standing atop the giant wall, looking at the centipedes attacking. Tangwan was constantly sending out the centipedes' mist at the other magical beasts. Guaran killed armored magical beasts, while the spirit race warriors killed the furred magical beasts. Long Chun continued to gather corpses, while the Dragonblood warriors' injuries had long since vanished. The Dragonblood warriors didn't go kill the golden tail underground centipedes. Occasionally, they would launch an attack to provoke them a bit and make them spit out more poison. Fuck, are you serious? I can't watch this. The ancient race, corrupt path, and ancient family experts were all enraged. They couldn't tell what the Dark Forest was thinking. Were they trying to help the Dragonblood Legion? The most difficult thing to bear was that despite the poison clearly being at the front, the other magical beasts all continued foolishly charging head-on into it. That was no different than sending themselves to their deaths. Are these magical beasts also idiots? Have their heads turned to wood as well? Curse someone. The Dark Forest's magical beasts are all controlled by the Dark Forest. Their souls are completely controlled, and they were originally dumb anyways. Now they basically don't have any ability to think on their own, said one of the Life Star experts from the Corrupt Path. He clearly knew a bit more than the others. But then, this is too painful to watch, said another expert. It wasn't as if Long Chen's tactics had been very skilled. But those magical beasts were still just foolishly falling for everything. Seeing the powerful magical beasts being slaughtered so easily enraged these experts. The Dark Forest tree demons had all retreated, and there was no way for them to communicate with them. These magical beasts were all dying for nothing. Long Chun felt like flowers were blooming in his heart. The magical beast corpses were all being tossed into the primal chaos space, and endless life energy was nourishing his world trees. It had to be known that these magical beasts were the elites of the Dark Forest. They were all 10th and 11th rank magical beasts. They possessed extremely strong life energy. Now the world trees were slowly growing, and even the final batch of them had reached 1,500 meters. They had almost caught up to the first batch. It seemed the primal chaos space was spreading its life energy evenly throughout the world trees. In the future, the difference between them would grow less and less. In the end, they would reach the same height. You want to run? That's no good. Li Qi, Song Mingyuan, slaughter them. Long Chun suddenly snorted. He also saw intense fluctuations coming from the distance. Shocking auras were rapidly approaching. You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.